people who stood out.
Good morning, sports diehards. Welcome to episode number 35 of the Living Room Podcast, a Speakeasy Steve production in cooperation with Die Hard Sports Radio, which is how this whole party began. I'm Speakeasy Steve, aka Steve Itzkowitz, being joined here by Jack Angelo. It is the week where we pick the winners of each division in the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference of the National Football League. Is Giancarlo Stanton's career as a Yankee over? He injured his right calf, and now apparently has a left calf injury. Is it the other way around? And his season is being threatened entirely. Is his career over if there is a lockout next year in Major League Baseball, which is widely expected? We will get into that. And at this point, are you as sick and tired of the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation as I am, in terms of, is it going to be Deshaun Watson? Is it going to be Shedeur Sanders? Who cares? They're terrible. We'll get into that a little bit. And Payton Watson traded from the Denver Nuggets in a 5-team deal. And so he's out of there. And DeMar DeRozan signs over there. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, who acquired Payton Watson, exchange James Harden. So it's good news, bad news for the Cavs. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. And then some other things. So a little NBA, a little Major League Baseball, and quite a bit of National Football League stuff on this edition of Living Room Podcast. But before we get into our division winner segment and the preseason of the NFL, let me introduce our Dire Sports Radio long-timer and the man we call Batman because he's swinging for the fence every time he states a take. Mr. Jack Angelo is back with us. Jack, my paisano in New Haven, Connecticut. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Steve. I'm doing well. My 52nd birthday today, so
Happy
wife,
birthday!
my
What a
wife made
present
it.
for me that you just voted as part of your birthday to be on the Living Room Podcast.
Well, this is
That's as much a
a
gift for me
labor
as I
of
hope it
love.
is for you.
It's a labor of love, and I love doing the show on an almost weekly basis. And so, and what better way to celebrate the morning here in rainy Connecticut than talking a little football? There's certainly been enough wall to wall football. Just think from between now, every weekend between now and February, we have football.
Yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
that's and then you get into draft season right after that, and of course free agency season. So yeah, the NFL is going to be dominating the headlines in sports pretty much up until next May when
Yeah,
OTAs occurred. You get the rookies into camp, so
it's
it's
a 24.
NFL all
It's a
the time.
365-day
What's that?
sport. It's 24/7, 365 at this point with the NFL.
Yeah, it pretty much is, which can be disturbing, but at the same time, if you love football, it's great. But sometimes the business of football, you start to think, is it all about the games or is it just about staying relevant? So that's something we could get into later on. And one thing I forgot to mention at the top is that I'm going to want your very early season impressions of your New York Giants, and I'm going to give you, because you were going to ask me last week about the 49ers. And I didn't
Yep.
have much to say because I didn't watch too much action. I did catch a little bit more this week, and I have some thoughts about the 49ers preseason so far. So we will get into that. But in the meantime, let's begin the discussion with picking who is going to win each division in the AFC and the NFC, from the AFC West to East, the NFC West to East. And obviously, we reserve the right to change these picks at any time. I don't like making Super Bowl preseason picks because this is what I know the least about teams. But a lot of shows will do this for fun, and I'm not sure it's fun if you're wrong ultimately. So, but we'll probably make our Super Bowl picks before the NFL season begins, which is less than 2 weeks away, when the Rams and the 49ers meet in Melbourne, Australia on Wednesday during week one of the NFL, which is a week from this Wednesday, if you could believe that. But let's go ahead and start with the AFC West. The defending champions are the Denver Broncos, followed by the Los Angeles Chargers, followed by the Kansas City Chiefs. Hard to believe they finished in third place last year. And of course, the Las Vegas Raiders bringing up the rear, which isn't a surprise, which might happen again this year. So let's pick the division winner, but also pick who's going to place behind the division winner after that. Jack,
Sure.
who is going to win the AFC West to start us off here?
You know, my answer may have changed from what it was 2 days ago, 3 days ago. My inkling going into the season, especially with McDaniel as the OC out there, because I think he can work magic out in Hollywood under Jim Harbaugh. I was going to pick the Chargers. Um,
Uh-huh.
the injury uh, at center to Tyler Badias um, might have changed my opinion a little bit. They're going to put Jake Slaughter in to play center.
Who's a rookie?
Rayshon Slater is scheduled to. I don't know if the Chargers played last night or they play today. Is scheduled to play, so he's finally coming back. I believe Joe Alt is back.
Yes.
I do like the Chargers a lot. They were all banged up last year and we're still a playoff team. Much like your 49ers, I think that, that comes down to coaching. And speaking of the 49ers went into LA and blew their doors off. Yes, it's preseason, but you had to have liked or appreciated the way the 49ers played the game. Um, you don't necessarily watch preseason for the score. You watch for how the team plays and how the team responds. And you watch for your depth pieces because it's the National Football League. People get hurt and people are going to have to step up. So you want your backup offensive tackle to look really good. You want your backup defensive end to look really good or your cornerback to be shut down. With that said, I do like what Denver has done this year, adding to their offense with people like Jalen Waddle. I think they're a bit more of a dynamic offense. I think, they had the defense last year, and were Nick's not hurt, they were, let's face it, they were going to the Super Bowl. They were better than New England, who I won't call a paper tiger, but they weren't as good as their record indicated. Um, so that said, and assuming the health of Knicks, I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos, closely followed by this Los Angeles Chargers. Like I said, 2 days ago, I probably would have flipped those. I think it's time for LA to really step up. I think with McDaniel there, Herbert can really be in the MVP discussion this year, and I think he will be, as long as his line remains upright and for the most part, and relative health. But I'm gonna go with Denver only because when you lose your starting center, that's a big deal. It's right in the middle of your line. Denver has a ferocious defense. Um, Other than maybe Houston, there's not too many better defenses in the league than Denver's, with the best cornerback in the league, by far, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos. It's never easy to go out to Denver and win a game in that altitude. So I'm going to roll with Denver. One closely followed by the LA Chargers at two.
We're in agreement on that. I have the Broncos winning the division as well, only because it's pretty simple. Bo Nix, who I know doesn't get celebrated nearly as much as Patrick Mahomes, who's in this division, along with Justin Herbert, who's got to, according to people, got to prove he can win a playoff game. I think that Chargers have to kind of help him with that. He can't do everything on the field. Quarterbacks just don't have that kind of ability to do everything that. It's amazing when people put everything on the quarterback. It's like, if a quarterback only throws the football, football is not really a one job type of sport. There's many jobs to do out there. You can only do some of those as a quarterback. So, but he gets celebrated a lot, nevertheless, for his talent. And then you have Fernando Mendoza, obviously, who's the new rookie on the scene, and everyone's excited about him. So Bo Nix doesn't get a lot, but he did win the division last year because the Broncos as a team are loaded on both sides of the ball, especially when you consider the addition of Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver from the Miami Dolphins, who went to the University of Alabama, is one of the fastest receivers in the league. You combine him with Cortland Sutton, the wide receiver over there with Denver, and you've got a pretty good tandem of wide receivers over there. So,
Evan Ingram at the tight end.
yes.
Uh,
Yeah. So Bo Nix is
he's
going to
got
have
weapons.
it's going to have more guys to throw it to. That is going to increase the passing attack for the Denver Broncos, allow Sean Payton to open up the playbook a little bit more, and he could do things offensively as an offensive-minded head coach that are
Yep.
going to catch teams by surprise, including the Chargers and the Chiefs and the Raiders. So the addition of Jalen Waddle makes me go back to Denver to win the division, followed by the Los Angeles Chargers, who will hopefully keep the remainder of the offensive line intact now with the situation with Badiaz, where he could miss the entire year. But Alt and Rashawn Slater being back, and if they do stay back, then they can work in Slaughter at center and they can make that work, especially with Mike McDaniel at the controls of the offense. He's going to mix things up, and Justin Herbert could have his best year as a pro working with Mike McDaniel in the offense that he's going to provide. But Omarion Hampton, the running back, is going to be the key for the Chargers if they are going anywhere this year and to be a team that will help Justin Herbert get his first playoff win. Then I look for Hampton to have a bust out year over there at SoFi Stadium for the Chargers. So, and I think that might be the biggest impact that McDaniel has on the Chargers is getting a running game in there so the Chargers can play offense, as in everything about offense that you have to have by which to be a top 10 unit, which the Chargers had the potential of being with Herbert at quarterback, the receiving core. You hold Ladd McConkey, who had a good rookie season. We'll get back to where he was, kind of tailed off last year. Keenan Allen is not back. He's gotten a little bit long in the tooth, but Omarion Hampton looking for him to have a bust out year, particularly if the offensive line remains mostly intact, despite the injury from Tyler Badias. So, Broncos win the division because their passing attack, I think, will be more prolific. Chargers coming behind them. Then I have the Chiefs, and then I have the Raiders. In regards to the Chiefs, Jack, continue to stay in the AFC West. Obviously, Mahomes is back, and they're the benefit of the doubt team currently in the NFL. So much success in a short amount of time. There's a lot of pundits out there, including at the Four Letter Network, that say, don't sleep on the Chiefs. Don't sleep on the Chiefs. I don't think anyone is sleeping on the Chiefs. I think, again, a quarterback can only do so much. I mean, you can't win. If the Chiefs were so dominant as a team, they would have beat that Eagles team, even though they were inferior on the offensive line a couple of years ago. That's an issue for the Chiefs, along with the back end of their defense now potentially losing, Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. They did drop the kid more out of LSU, but he could only play one side of the field ultimately. So why not the Chiefs? Are the Chiefs being overhyped in this preseason because of the Mahomes effect? Or, do you think that Mahomes coming off a major knee injury and having an offensive line that might still be questionable? They did bring in, Kenneth Walker III, the MVP of the Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks, which could be a good pickup for the Chiefs if they utilize him enough and have a consistent running attack. But why not the Chiefs winning the AFC West? Like a lot of pundits think could happen just because Mahomes is back.
Could it happen? Yes. I just think when you look at 1-53, Denver and LA are both better than the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the totality of the teams, Kansas City doesn't stack up as well against LA and Denver. They're just better teams. And normally you would give an edge to Andy Reid in coaching. Andy Reid doesn't have much, if any, advantage over Peyton or Harbaugh, at the head coach. So that's not going to make the difference. I see the Chiefs as maybe an 8 or 9 win team. I see the Chargers as a 10 or 11 win team, and I see the Broncos as a 13 win team. Um, so I'm more apt to say that I would flip flop LA and Denver than I would flip flopping Kansas City with either of the teams above them. Barring injury, I don't think the Chiefs they do have talent, and yes, they still do have Mahomes. We have to see what Mahomes looks like post surgery. I'm sure he'll be just fine. Is he, coming out of the gate? Is he 90% of himself? Is he 85% of himself? To expect 100% right away, um, I think is hoping for a lot, but I just don't think that the Chiefs are as talented as either LA or Denver. And for that reason, I'm picking Denver/LA to win the division. but I'll stick with Denver and Las Vegas. For what they're worth. Look, nobody expects them to make playoffs this year, and they won't. They infused a lot of talent. I think they will be better. I still think they have a mountain of issues, particularly on the offensive line. Mendoza damn near got killed the other night. But
And we'll see how the
I
back
do
end of the
think I do
defense
think you go
looks.
into, you know, here's a question regarding the AFC West. Um, Taking record out of it, how long do you think before Mendoza takes the reins in Las Vegas? Give me a week, or does he sit the whole year?
I actually don't really know. Only because let's just say there's a number one pick in the NFL draft every year, which
Yep,
there is
yep.
every year. It's
After seeing Miami play,
it's not
they're going to be the ones getting it.
it's not the Olympics. It's not an every 4 year thing. So the media says, well, he's the number one overall pick. Got to start him. Got to know what you have. By the way, knowing what you have is a matter of visibility, and playing football is not just something that happens on TV. They know what they have of him already. He's been in practice, he's been in camp, he's been doing everything, and he's played in games. So pretty sure they know what they have by now. So I don't need to be that part. If you want to sell the Raiders on starting Mendoza, you're going to have to know what they know, which you probably don't. So I don't really have a feel, but if I had to guess, gun to head, I imagine he will start. When's the Raiders bye week?
I don't know, but I was thinking maybe week 11 or 12, unless the
I
Raiders
would
have
think
such a
between
good
week
record,
six.
you
I would
know,
think between week 6 and 8
you know.
is if he's going to start. He'll start around then if the Raiders. But of course, Kirk Cousins, if he's playing well, and this is the problem is Kirk Cousins has been a starter in the NFL for many years. I know Mendoza is in there as the number one overall pick, and everyone's
Yep.
excited about him. But that, I mean, Fernando Mendoza's resume so far, very early in his career, is not an automatic because Kirk Cousins has a resume as well. It's a pretty good one. I mean, what if he's playing well through the week? So you hope. I'm going to say what the two things could be. You hope that you don't have to start Fernando Mendoza this year at all because, as you alluded to, the offensive line still needs to come together and keep Mendoza upright. It's an offensive line. I think the offensive line is more important than the quarterback most of the time because if your offensive line is right, then any pro quarterback that is a pro quarterback is going to be able to be successful anyways because you have an offensive line that's going to give him time to make reads, to make good decisions, and to deliver the football to the receivers for them to make plays. So you hope that you don't have to start Mendoza at all this season. But my guess is they're going to pick him because it would be the most simplest thing would be to just not have Mendoza play unless absolutely necessary. Cousins playing terribly, which I doubt is going to be the case, or Cousins getting injured, which could be the case. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not the most mobile guy in the world. So but if Cousins is playing reasonably well, there's no reason for the Raiders to put Mendoza in there because if Cousins is playing well, it could probably translate to winning football games. And if that's happening, you don't disrupt your own momentum. But if I had to pick, I'll say before week 8 that they'll put Mendoza in there if the wishes of, the people covering the team come true, because I know they want Mendoza to get in there. It's a new story, it's fresh, and they want that kind of thing. But the reality is, if Cousins has played the way he's capable of when they brought him in, then Mendoza might actually miss the entire season, which would be good for him, which give the Raiders more time to make sure the offensive line is up to snuff before they stick him in there and christen him under fire. So, but best prediction, week 8. But I say that with a huge caveat of that don't confuse your excitement of Fernando Mendoza starting with assuming that Kirk Cousins is going to be bad. He hasn't been in the league this long and made as much money as he has for no reason whatsoever. So we've got to be very, very, very logical about this, when it comes to this situation with the Raiders.
I agree for the most part. I hearken back to what was the year 2004, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
A guy named Kurt Warner was the quarterback of the New York Football Giants. They were 5-4. They were at the time going into week 10, the number
Yeah.
6 seed, and a playoff team as the seeding stood at that point in the NFC conference.
Right.
He was lifted for a guy named Eli Manning
Yeah.
and was off to the races. I don't know, I think Cousins knows, and they would have made it clear, when he signed there, because they'd already drafted Mendoza, I believe, before he signed with. They know that Mendoza is the future in Las Vegas.
Right.
I don't think it's as much about how Cousins is playing. It's about you want Mendoza to get game speed. You want Mendoza, iron sharpens iron. You want Mendoza playing against starting defenses. You want Mendoza. Look, Cousins is the starters now, so with the exception of a very little bit, Cousins is getting the reps in practice with the ones. He's the one developing the chemistry with the receivers and the routes and
Right.
the running backs and the offensive line and the cadence and the footwork and everything else that comes along with it. You don't want, I think everybody would agree that Fernando Mendoza, week 1 next year, is going to be the starter for the Las Vegas Raiders.
I would think so,
I
yeah.
I I
That would be the
wouldn't
most
want him.
ideal situation, by the way, because now you got another draft, now you got another free agency period,
Only,
and
the
you
only
could beef
way
up that offensive line, or maybe your offensive line comes together well this year, which is
the
possible.
only way I can see
But let the
Cousins
future
holding
be the
on to the
future.
reins
Don't
is
rush
if
it.
he's like 8-2, and you don't want to upset the apple cart. Even if they're
Well,
five and
yeah, if they
five, even if they're 5-5,
if they're
I
5-4,
think,
like that Kurt Warner team
yeah,
was, by the way, and if they're going to pull Kurt Warner when he has a winning record, like firing
yep.
Robert
And
Saleh
Kurt
when he
Warner's
was
a
three
Hall
and
of
two
Famer.
with the Jets, it's like I think if the Raiders are at above 500 at any point, especially at that point in the season, 9 weeks, 10 weeks in, they would be delighted with that, don't you think?
Absolutely, but I think even if the Raiders are 5, I still think Cousins is coming to the bench, and I think Cousins
Mm-hmm.
already knows before he signed. Look, you are going to be starting quarterback day one. At some point, Mendoza is going to take the reins. Um, I would want game speed tape on Mendoza um, for his confidence and his building uh, mentally and physically going into next year. You want him playing with his ones. You want him
Yeah.
playing against somebody else's ones. Um, you don't christen him by fire, but putting him out there week 1. That's why you have Cousins there. But I would think between, what did I say before? Between like weeks 8 and 11, I would expect to see Mendoza under center or in the shotgun, as it were. Um, you have to get him comfortable with the ones and comfortable facing NFL defenses. Is he going to struggle? Sure. Look at what happened the other day. Now, granted, it's Houston, and they were backups. For the most, they were twos, not ones. With the 80-yard pick six, I think that does a lot for Mendoza. You don't know NFL speed until you see NFL speed. You don't know how the NFL disguises defenses and goes to trick rookie quarterbacks with the disguised defenses until you play against them. I don't want him being christened under fire next year. I want him christened under fire the late part of this year. And unless the Raiders are on a heater and they're like 8-2, 7-3, where it would really upset potential playoff seeding to do that. I think between weeks 8 and 11, Mendoza is the starting quarterback out in LA. Excuse me, Las Vegas.
Well, kind of like maybe the Raiders will end up back in LA. Who knows? They're a team that likes to move every so often, but I digress. I'm going to counteract what you said. You're right that ultimately he is the future. He's going to be the starting quarterback. But I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I'm also going to explain to you why you talk about he wants to get experience playing against the ones of a certain team.
I'm going to pull up the
The
Raiders
depth
schedule
chart,
while you're
the
doing
ones
that.
on the ones on your depth charts, your starters. The combined practices that NFL teams tend to do in the preseason now, the Raiders have had combined practices against the Texans, and Mendoza in those combined practices did play against the Texans' best players. I don't know how he did, but those combined practices are where you can play against the ones, which is the whole idea of those combined practices. You're scouting those teams, you're getting tape on those teams, your starters are facing their starters, and or your rookies are going against their stars to see how they do. So that's already happening. So he's already getting that experience, even if we can't see it. Where I would counteract what you mentioned is a couple of examples. One is the Kansas City Chiefs when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, but they had Alex Smith as a starting quarterback. You remember that, right? Alex Smith was the starter when Patrick Mahomes won his first year. Patrick Mahomes takes over in his second year and goes all the way to the AFC Championship game where they lose to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots before the Patriots beat the Rams in a Super Bowl several years ago. And when McVay was younger with the Rams as a head coach going against Bill Belichick. And then you have the Green Bay Packers, who are the best example of this. Aaron Rodgers on the bench for 3 years, waiting for Brett Favre to step aside. Look what he's done. And then you have Jordan Love on the bench for 3 years, waiting for Aaron Rodgers to step aside to get traded to the Jets. And look what he's done. Maybe not to the level of Aaron Rodgers, but still Love has been a fairly decent quarterback. There is a precedent for not starting a rookie if you don't have to. If your current starting quarterback, who's a veteran, who has a resume, like Alex Smith with the Chiefs back then, like Kirk Cousins now, the Giants took a chance on Eli Manning. It worked out, but maybe pulling Kurt Warner at that particular time was a risk, even though it did work out. But there is a precedent for it. So I think as long as Cousins is playing well, and as long as he's healthy, let him go for as long as he possibly can and try to allow Mendoza to observe game speed from the sideline, but also the fact that in these combined practices, he's getting a chance to get that experience, even if we can't see it, and he becomes a starter next year. That formula can work. It has worked before. It worked for the Chiefs. It has also worked for the Packers a couple of times in our lifetime anyway. So I think you have to give that a shot. But do I think Mendoza will start sometime this year? Probably. The wind seems to be heading in that direction. But I don't think we should assume it. I don't think it should be something we hope for. I think ultimately what's best for the Raiders is that Cousins has a good year. They continue to develop the offensive line. You also need another receiver. Brock Bowers can't catch I don't know about the Raiders receiving core right now, to be honest with you. They don't have a clear number one over there after trading Jacoby Myers away last year to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's another issue for the Raiders, is who's going to be their WR1 to go along with Bowers. So that I think is
right now their depth start is Jalen Naylor and Trey Tucker.
Okay. Jalen Naylor's decent, but he's not a WR1 in my opinion.
True. But I'm looking at the Raiders' schedule, and then we'll move off the AFC West. Sunday, November 29th, they're at Cleveland. I think that would be a great time to start Mendoza. And then you have their bye week. They have a late bye week. It's week 13. And then they come out of their bye with 5 games remaining. Now, granted, the first 2 out of the bye are home Chargers and home Broncos. Those are tough, but they're at home. And then they end their season at home against the Titans, at the Arizona Cardinals, who are dreadful, and at the Kansas City Chiefs. I really think that Cleveland game, the week of Thanksgiving, November 22nd, they're at Denver. I don't think that's a good place to christen him, barring injuries. But
actually, you want to talk about it? If you're going to christen a guy under fire, christen him under fire. What more fire are you going to get than in Denver? And by the way, the Denver Broncos play on this. It's the same football field in every stadium, Jack. You know what I mean? So if you want to go that route, why not start him in Denver?
Well, you know what? I just think they're playing Denver less than.
I guess at home, you want to ease them in a little bit, so I can see that part of it.
I would think
it's still going to be a tough game.
Going into the bye at Cleveland is a really nice landing spot. Just looking at their schedule. Because they have some winnable games up front. I mean, they open up at home against Miami. They're going to beat Miami. Miami is awful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
Awful.
Yeah. Miami's going to be in full tank mode. I mean, Malik Willis is not their long-term solution to quarterback, and you got the new Miami, GM and the new head coach
unless something drastic happens. Yeah. Miami's going to get the number 1 overall pick. I mean, they are, if they win 4 games this year, I'll be astounded.
By the way, let's not assume. Remember when they were trying to tank several years ago, tank for Tua? They ended up winning about 5 or 6 games that year because you got guys on the team on the team that have pride that want good tape for
That's
the other
true,
31 other
but
teams.
I
So
just don't. I don't
let's
think
not
Miami has
automatically
the
assume
horses
the
for
Dolphins are
courses.
going to be the worst. We think they'll be based on the roster, but there are players on the roster that have pride and need good tape. So it's not
That's
an
true,
automatic
but
the Dolphins are the worst team in the league. It's shaping up that way, but it's the NFL where surprises happen all the time.
but that's my prediction. Week 12 at
Yeah.
Cleveland is when
Yeah.
Mendoza takes the reins, barring
Okay.
injury.
Fair enough. And if Kirk Cousins isn't playing that well, I think if he is playing well, I think you let him continue. But it depends on where the Raiders are at that point. If they're a losing record, if they're not in the playoff hunt, mathematically eliminated, that might be the case. But I think how Cousins is playing at that time is going to be a big determining factor. But what you say makes sense in terms
Yep.
of the good first game get to start. Certainly Cleveland would be that team who might not be as good defensively as they've been, given that Myles Garrett is no longer there, although they do have Jared Verse. So we'll see how that turns out. The
Now
AFC North.
let's not go to the AFC North yet. Hold on. Let's go to the NFC West. Let's go to the
Okay.
NFC West, and I
Okay.
want you to make the first call on the NFC West. We'll just work our way across the country, division by division. Since I
West,
led off
West.
last time, your thoughts on the NFC West?
Well, I have the Rams winning the division.
Okay.
I think their defense, assuming health, they got and I don't know what's going on with Aaron Donald. Like that story, like a week has gone by, still no deck. He worked out with the team, all that good stuff. It's like he's trying out for the team at this point. So I have no idea what to make of that situation. So let's just look at the Rams as they are. No Donald. Obviously, you have Myles Garrett, you had Trent McDuffie, to Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, and then you have John Lamon, the linebacker, who came on big last year. So I have the Rams winning the division. Their defense, I think, is top five caliber. Offensively, we'll see how the offensive line comes together. But you have Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams as receiver. You got four tight ends that you could utilize. I don't know what's going to happen with Alaric Jackson and his situation on the offensive line. So that's a little bit of a concern. But Matthew Stafford is a defending MVP, and I think Kyren Williams is poised to have a big season at running back. So I have the Rams winning the division on the strength that their defense is going to be dominant and that their offense is going to get the job done enough by which to take advantage of that defense. Followed by the Seattle Seahawks, the defending Super Bowl champs. They lost Walker, but they did draft somebody, to replace him. They will have Zach Charbonnet back. The offensive line comes back intact. They're still outstanding defensively. I think they added somebody defensively of note, but I forget who it was. So the Seahawks finish in second, and they go into the playoffs as a wild card, followed by the 49ers, followed by the Cardinals of Jacoby Brissett and Carson Beck. Apparently, he's playing well in camp. He might have a chance to start some games this year. Who knows? So Brissett's got some competition over there in the Valley of the Sun with Carson Beck. So, but they bring up the rear regardless of who's starting at quarterback with them. There's just too much talent and too much dominance above them in the NFC West with the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers. So I have the Rams win the division, followed by the Seahawks. What about you?
I'm going to take the Seahawks. I think to be the champs, you got to beat the champs. Um, Look, I think the Rams have let's look at the Seahawks opening schedule. They open up obviously at home against the Patriots, tough game. Then they're at Arizona, at Washington, and then at home against the Los Angeles Chargers, and at home against San Francisco. I don't think it's unreasonable to think they come out of this 4-1. Okay. Now, does that mean that's how
I
they're
mean,
going to
if they
finish the
start
year?
if the Seahawks start 4-1, then yeah, that'd be a
You
heck of
know,
a start because there are, the Niners are a tough matchup along with the a couple of other teams that you mentioned.
now, and let's look at the Rams. The Rams have to go literally across the world to play San Francisco. No easy thing. Then they're home against the Giants on Monday Night Football. I think the Giants are going to be a lot tougher than people think they're going to be.
No, I'm looking forward to
I
that
don't. I'm
game.
not. I'm not
I think
expecting.
that's going to be a really good game. I mean, think about the
I'm not
coaching
expecting the
matchup between
Giants.
Harbaugh and McVay, so they haven't faced each
To
other too much. So,
necessarily win that
yeah.
game, but I think they're going to go in there and really give the Rams a problem. And then
Mm-hmm.
listen to this: Week 3 at Denver, Week 4 at Philadelphia, Week 5 home Buffalo. Is it out of the realm of possibility that the Rams start this season 2-3? Good. They could. You know.
You know what though? You know what though? Allow me to be so bold. Aren't they too good to have a start like that? I mean, and by the way, they talk about another team's tough schedule. The Rams are part of other teams' tough schedule as well. Keep in mind. I mean,
Well, they are. But
I think the defense alone, they're not going to have to score as many points with a defense like that. I mean, just score 21 to 24 points, and you have McVay and his offensive ingenuity over there. So the Rams cannot have this much talent to have that kind of start. It doesn't add up to me at all. And I'm a 49ers fan saying this. So I'm telling the truth. I mean, yeah, could it happen? But I don't like could. Let's look at probability. The Rams starting 2-3, they're too good for that. Too
are they?
talented for that. So we'll
Are
see.
they? This
I
is the
think
National
so.
Football League. The guys in the other I'm not into they look good on paper. Are the Rams a playoff team? Absolutely.
I mean,
I
the paper got a little bit better. I mean,
but I they are the hunted. They are going to
Well,
get
so are the
everyone's.
Seahawks, by the way. They're still the defending champs, so let's not
But
forget about
but the
that.
thing is, you wouldn't know it. The Rams are
Well,
the
in the
hunted.
media, you might not know it, but the players do.
You know, the first time. When is the first time they play Seattle, and where is it? They don't play Seattle. It looks like until late.
Well,
They play
good,
Seattle
good for
twice in
them.
the. They play Seattle twice in the final 3 weeks. Christmas Day, they're at Seattle. Then they're home again. Then they're at Tampa. Then they're home against Seattle. They don't play
Mm-hmm.
Seattle until late in the year. Very
Maybe
late
line up.
until
Well, the good thing
Christmas.
about that is that Sean McVay, who usually likes to rest his starters in the final couple weeks, may not be able to do that this time with playing Seattle so late. We'll see, if that affects how they manage their players and load management late in the season, as McVay has been prone to doing. That may not be the case this year, but it may not be a bad thing for the Rams. They'll be very battle tested going into the playoffs, I would think.
I think the Rams finish second. I think the Rams have 11 wins. I think Seattle has 12. You know,
Okay.
I just think uh, Seattle. For whatever reason, yes, they're fans. Their home field advantage is much better than the Rams' home field advantage. It's probably better than everybody's home field advantage. It's just a long flight to get out there. Um, they know what it takes to win. They know they can beat the Rams. They're not scared of the Rams. Um, I like Seattle to win the division, and the Rams closely behind them.
I
And I think the Niners will be right neck and neck with the Rams. I think the Rams might finish a game ahead of the Niners, but not much more than that.
mhm. Well, in regards to
What?
the week 1
What?
matchup,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, let's start with the week 1 matchup. In Australia,
mhm.
ridiculous. Don't get me started on that. Give me some insight into this guy Stribling supposedly is doing some nice things out there in the Bay Area.
Well,
So
that's the plus of this preseason is Stribling is stepping up like a wide receiver one. Great hands, excellent blocker, which you have to do in a Kyle Shanahan offense. Everyone has to block. There's a saying that if you want the rock, you need to block. And Stribling is doing a great job of that. He runs very good routes. He can separate. He can get himself open. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he can get himself open. At the end of the day, that's what a wide receiver has to do: is get open, catch the ball. He's done a good job of both. And in this Kyle Shanahan zone scheme offense, he's got a block for the benefit of the running attack led by Christian McCaffrey, who is being held out right now because of tightness, but is expected to be available in week 1. This isn't a hold in on his part. No one was surprised by Bijan Robinson and Jameer Gibbs getting the deal that he got, including Christian McCaffrey. Everyone saw that coming. So McCaffrey is not in protest. Otherwise, he would have started a hold in much sooner than he did. He was practicing before the tightness happened. So they're being conservative with him, with Bosa, with Kittle. More on Kittle in a moment. But Stribling, I'm absolutely delighted what he's done in preseason so far. The Niners have mostly gone with their backups. Brock Purdy has played a little bit, but mostly Antonio Gonzalez, Mac Jones has played a little bit. The Niners are good at quarterback in terms of the starter and the backup. Gonzalez hasn't looked great. He's completed, I think, 49% of his passes, something like that, a couple of interceptions. So he'll be the emergency quarterback at best, the third string quarterback. But the Niners quarterback situation is fine. Obviously, you want Bosa to come back. He's still on the mend. Warner is back. They brought back Greenlaw, and we'll see what the secondary does with Renardo Green, who struggled last year, Jair Brown, who also struggled last year. Those guys need to step it up. They do have Diamador Lenore, who's a very, very good. He can play outside. He can play in the slot at cornerback, so I like him. And of course, the defensive line. We'll see what happens with Bosa, who needs to return to his defensive player of the year form from 3 years ago. But Stribling is the good news. I also like what Jacob Cowing is doing. I think he's going to get more time in the offense. He's got a few catches this preseason. He also returned a punt for 70-plus yards in the preseason game against the Chargers just the other day. So I think he's going to be a good punt returner. But I think Cowing, given the absence of Ricky Pearsall, who I just feel really bad for him. I can't think of a worse start to an NFL career than what Ricky Pearsall has had to endure. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous what he's had to endure. And he's got another injury that's going to cause him to miss a year, which means he'll have missed more games in the first 3 years of his career than games he's played in by about 7 games, I believe. If I'm not, it's like 20-14 right now. It'll be 20-31 after this season with Pearsall. So it's absolutely insane what's going on with him. But I think Cowan gets more time in the offense, and I think he might be ready to step up and give the 49ers another receiving option to go along with Christian Kirk, who's on the mend, who will hopefully be back. Denard Robinson had a decent season last year for the 49ers. So they appear to have very good, and of course, Mike Evans, the addition of him. If he's healthy, he's one of the best receivers in the game, one of the most consistent receivers in the game. So his health gives Brock Purdy a very quality target to throw to. In regards to Kittle and week 1, there is a lot of talk about Kittle maybe missing the game because it's in Australia and giving him another week. The only is, and I get that. And if that's what they do, that's fine. But if you don't have Kittle in that week 1 matchup, there's a very good chance you're going to lose that game without Kittle in there. I think if he's healthy enough, he should fly with the team and he should play. But if you want to hold him back just because of the location of the game, I'm not sure it would be good for Kittle. I'm not sure it's good for the 49ers. I think you need everything you have against a Rams team that is coming into the season with high expectations, as you alluded to earlier, and a lot of motivation. Oh, by the way, playing in maybe the toughest division in football, the NFC West. So if Kittle's healthy enough to play, I would look for him to play. If not, it's going to be a tough enough game already if he does play. If he doesn't, and, Mike Evans, we'll see how his health is, but that might make it even tougher to play against the Rams team in week 1, in which both these teams rarely lose the first game of the season, but the Rams have maybe a little bit more motivation on their side based on expectations. So I think the Niners need a full deck against the Rams for this week 1 matchup, but if they don't, the chances of them losing go up rather significantly, especially if you don't have a guy like George Kittle, who's one of the leaders of this team and one of the most productive players on this team. So we'll see how that turns out. But that's my initial impression of the 49ers. Good for Stripling, Cowing, but questions on the back end, and obviously
that's just
key players returning to health like Bosa and Kittle.
That, as I'm looking, here's what I like about the San Francisco defense. Their 2 inside linebackers, Greenlaw and Warner, are elite. They're elite. So it's good with those 2 there. It's going to be very tough by nature to run the ball against San Francisco.
And they'll also do a good job against the tight ends of the Rams, too. Greg Greenlaw is actually pretty good defending tight ends. He did a good job against Kelsey in their last Super Bowl appearance. Then when Greenlaw went down, Kelsey had a big second half, and it wasn't a coincidence, in my opinion.
Here's my concern with the 49ers, which is why I don't have them, even higher. I have concerns when your starting defensive backfield is Lenore, Brown, Mustafa, Green, and Stout. I have questions about that. I
agree.
Backfield.
That's Raheem Morris, the new defensive coordinator. His challenge is to get that secondary together. And hopefully the Niners pass rush, is what it's been under Robert Saleh to help that secondary out. But I think that's his big challenge this year, is getting that secondary together.
Now, What do you think, about the San Francisco offensive line? Right now, I have it as Williams, Jones, Brendel, Pooney, and McKivitz, left to right across the offensive
Well,
line.
I love Williams. I mean, Williams healthy is the best left tackle in the game by far. Nothing
But
he
he's
can't
also
do.
40.
I've, I mean, he's the guy, so he's got to do what he has to do. Oh, listen, put it this way: Williams stays healthy, he's going to do great. He's going to be an
Yep.
All-Pro left tackle if he stays healthy. My only concern at his age is health. But if he's healthy and in there, he's too good. He's got too much pride too. So again, I just want him to be in there playing all the games if at all possible. And if he is, he's going to be an All Pro left tackle. You'll never convince me otherwise. I
Yep.
love Pooney. First year was great. Last year he tailed off a little bit, but he's having a good camp so far. So those are probably our two best offensive linemen. McKivitz, I like. I don't love. He needs to do a little bit better blocking on the right side over there. And then Brendel inside and the center. The inner portion, and this is where I wanted the Niners to address the inner portion of the offensive line, or at least have a succession plan for Williams. They went offensive line in the fourth and fifth rounds back to back, but I
Yep.
wanted them. There were guys I thought they could have grabbed in the first or second round on the interior that could have shored that offensive line up, but that's just not how they like to draft skill position players more than like to draft linemen. I mean, they acquired Williams by way of a trade with the Washington Commanders, you may recall. So the interior portion of the offensive line, I question at this point from the center and the left guard position. I like Pooney at right guard. I love Williams, and hopefully McKivitz gets a little bit. He's not a bad right tackle, but I think given his promise versus what he's been in the league, there's a little bit of a gap there. So he needs to improve. But really, the left guard and the center position with Brendel and the center, I'm not so sure about. So Brock Purdy is going to be at a lot of rollouts, and fortunately, Brock Purdy is way more mobile than we give him credit for. Like he's a quarterback that can move a little bit. I'm not going to put him in the same class as a Lamar Jackson or a Kyler Murray or a guy like that. But you know what? He's much more mobile as a quarterback based on what he did last season at times in that regard than we give him credit for. So they'll get him on the move and bootlegs and things of that nature. But the interior part of the offensive line for the 49ers, particularly with the center and the left guard, is where I have the most concerns. What about you?
I need to see how they play, especially, as I was looking at the 49ers depth chart, and you tell me how real this is. Right now, in terms of depth chart, you have McCaffrey questionable, Evans questionable, Kirk questionable, Kittle questionable, Juszczyk questionable, Bosa questionable, Michael Williams questionable. Is that just they'll be fine for week one?
I mean, the question is, will they play week one or not? And we have a couple weeks away. My guess is most of those guys will be available. I feel like the Niners have addressed, they put in more therapy equipment into the practice facility. They've adjusted their schedule a little bit. Maybe less two-a-days. They've made some adjustments in how they run the preseason, so guys have more rest time and recovery time and therapy time. They have
Yeah.
some new equipment in there that I think they devoted $9 million to. So good on Jed York to write the check to get new therapy equipment. So I think maybe being questionable, if I see doubtful, that's when I get concerned. Questionable could go either way, but I kind of feel like the Niners are taking a conservative approach. They're trying to address the injury situations, minus the power substation near the stadium. That's been a lot of chatter, amongst pundits and surgeons. Is that the reason why the Niners get injured all the time? I don't know about that. I don't think it's that simple, but I think the Niners have taken steps this offseason with the schedule, with adding $9 million worth of therapy and spa equipment and giving the players more rest and recovery time. So I feel like they're taking a conservative approach with those guys, want to make sure they're ready for week one, including McCaffrey.
Yep. Okay. So where are we going next? The AFC North?
Yes, AFC North with so who won the AFC North last year? That was the
Pittsburgh, I
Pittsburgh
believe.
Steelers.
No,
The
that's not happening again.
the
Uh,
Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cincinnati Bengals, who did make a late move late in the season to try to get in the playoffs. They fell short. Then you have the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens didn't get it last year either. So who wins that division?
I'm a little bit torn.
Let me
Part
guess.
of me,
Cincinnati or Baltimore.
well, that's just it.
I know you're watching Sexy Dexy, who apparently is
No,
having a
I'm
heck of a
really not.
preseason so far.
He's been what?
He's having a great preseason so far, from what I hear.
Dexter Lawrence is just another former Giant to me. I don't have, ill will or anything towards Dex. Um, but um, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens only because I'm not sold that Cincinnati can keep their quarterback upright all year. I'm still not sold on the Cincinnati defense. I mean, let's take a look at the Bengals starting defense. Um,
Without Trey Hendrickson, which prompted the trade for Dexter Lawrence, by the way, because Hendrickson is now elsewhere. So,
well, Cincinnati's running a 4-3. You have
yeah.
Mafe and Miles Murphy are the pass rushers with Jonathan Allen and Dexter Lawrence inside. Not bad, not bad. Let's see who they have in the secondary. Um, their secondary is not scaring anybody. Dax Hill, Jordan Battle, Brian Cook, DJ Turner, and Jalen Davis. Um, I'm not sure. Cincinnati's offense is elite. They probably have the best wide receiver room in the league with Chase and Higgins. And I'm going to go with Baltimore only because I think they have a much better defense, or they will have a better defense. And I have more faith in their quarterback going the full pull than I do in Cincinnati. So I'm going to go Baltimore winning the division. I don't think that I think Baltimore wins this division with 10 wins. I don't think it's going to be one of those divisions that you're going to get a top seed in the conference. I think whoever comes out of the AFC North might have the 4 seed in the AFC. But I'm going to roll with Baltimore.
I agree, although maybe for slightly different reasoning.
Okay.
Remember when I mentioned that the Bengals are no longer have Trey Hendrickson?
Yep.
Guess where he ended up going?
Oh, he's in Baltimore now.
Yeah, not a bad pickup for the Ravens. And they draft Ione. They draft Ione to shore up the offensive line for Lamar Jackson. They might be without Rashad Bateman, who's got some issues right now off the field. But Big
Well, that's just
Ione,
it. That's my question about is their wide
yeah,
receiver room
the
after
wide
Zay
receiver
Flowers.
room, yeah. And by
After
the
Zay
way,
Flowers,
they lost Isaiah Likely to your Giants.
yes.
Like I've mentioned multiple times,
They might
I
have
would
wanted
have
to keep
rather
Likely and let
Baltimore
Andrews
kept
walk.
Likely and let Andrews go, but they let Likely go. They still have
Likely,
Andrews. So
just watch. Likely's going to be a matchup problem for everybody they play.
I agree. I
A
agree.
huge matchup problem.
I think that might have been the Giants' best pickup, best acquisition in the offseason player wise was getting Likely to come with Harbaugh up the Atlantic to New York. So
Yep.
yeah, but they get Trey Hendrickson. That's not bad. And they draft Vega Ione, and then they got an edge rusher and Zion Young. So they shore up the offensive line, they shore up the defense. Minter is going to have that defense playing at a very, very high level. So I'm not too worried about that. And they bring in a new offensive.
They have Kyle Hamilton in the back, running the back end.
Yes, yeah, Kyle
He's the
Hamilton
best
is one of
safety in the
the
league.
one of the best safeties in the league. So I have Baltimore win the division as well. Now, when they get into the playoffs, who's going to be besides Zay Flowers? Because as good as he is, you can't throw to him on every single play. Who's going to be your number two, number three? They need Andrews to really step up this year in the absence of Likely and not drop any balls in the playoffs like he did against Baltimore against Buffalo a couple of
Yeah.
years ago. You may recall, so they need him to be, who he's capable of being. He is a top 5 caliber tight end when he's healthy enough, but he's not getting any younger, and they gave up Likely, so you're going to need him with Flowers and one or two other guys. We'll see who those other two guys are, but I think defensively, adding Hendrickson and having Hamilton in the back end, as you mentioned, they should be one of the best units in the league. And you also have, the linebacking core in the middle, with what's his
Roquan
name?
Smith and Buchanan.
Yeah. And the guy who came from
Hendricks is
Chicago.
technically a linebacker, but he's a pass rusher. So
Yeah. And the guy who came from Chicago, the middle linebacker, came from Chicago for Baltimore. What was his name?
Uh,
Can't believe I'm forgetting it.
they have Roquan Smith.
Roquan Smith, that's who I was thinking of. Roquan
Yeah.
Smith. So they have stars on all three levels, and in some cases, multiple stars. So I look for the defense under Minter to get even better than it's been. And offensively, we'll see who steps up in the WR2 and WR3 positions with Flowers and with Andrews. I think the offensive line got better too with the addition of Ione. So I have Baltimore win the division, followed by Cincinnati. They are going to put points on the board. I think their defense will get a little bit better, not much, but a little bit better with Lawrence in there. And then we get into, I think Pittsburgh finishes third, and I have Cleveland bringing up the rear.
I mean, for Pittsburgh, I'm looking at Pittsburgh. I don't love their defense.
Mm.
Yeah, they have Cam Hayward there and Watt.
I mean,
Patrick
talk
Queen will
about a
be,
unit needs to get
you know,
younger, and
Patrick
obviously
Queen,
TJ Watt.
is on the back nine.
Yeah,
They even though he's not playing right now, and I've heard there's trade talks surrounding him. Joey Porter is one of their Joey Porter Jr. as one of their cornerbacks. I don't love, I saw them play against the Jets the other night, and granted, it was preseason and their starters really didn't play. Um, are Pittman and Metcalf really scaring that many people anymore? Is Rodgers really scaring that many people anymore? They have a nice tight end with Fryermuth. I like him. Um, I'm not sold on their offensive line. Outside of the three guys I mentioned with Hayward and Watt and Joey Porter, I'm not sold on their defense. I think there'll be a matchup problem because I think that's just how their head coach operates. Um, so I see Pittsburgh once again winning 7, 8 games and being in the middle. Um, they have a lot of quarterbacks. So,
yeah.
I mean, they have Rodgers, Rudolph, Howard, and Aller. So, I mean, you're not going to keep four of them. But
Yeah.
I, you know,
How has Aller looked in preseason so far? You mentioned on our group text
I guess he
with our
looked
friend
okay,
Norm
but it's
that
tough
he's
to
no
tell.
longer your problem. So, but how's he
He's
looking
not.
so far for the Raiders or for the Steelers in preseason?
Half of Aller's problems in college was James Franklin. Aller was never Penn State never invested in their wide receiver room, never invested in they had tight ends, they had running backs all day long, and Aller was a 5-star coming out of high school. I
I
mean,
know
you know, um,
he's got all the tools. It's just he to your point, he needs the coaching and he
he
needs the stability.
and McCarthy's a great quarterbacks coach. I think
I
that'll do
agree.
him well.
Yeah.
I think you're going to end up with I don't know who's going to be there, but it's going to be Rodgers and I would assume Howard and Aller. I think Mason Rudolph might be a trade candidate if they can dump him somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If there's an injury, especially in the preseason. I don't love Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh will struggle to get to 8 wins. I just don't think this is their year. And Cleveland is Cleveland. They don't have a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, with the Steelers, they did acquire Michael Pittman Jr. from the Colts by way of a trade,
Yes.
which I think will help in the passing game. But obviously, you need more from DK Metcalf than you got last year in Pittsburgh for Aaron Rodgers. And you mentioned Pat Firemuth, the tight end, who's pretty good. So theoretically, their passing game should be better. I'm not sure who's going to run the football, but
Well,
it
right
feels
now,
like
Jalen Warren is listed as
Pittsburgh
the
feels like a
starter. Rico
team that
Dowdle is
is
there, who
that
we
is
like.
aging before our very eyes. So
Yeah.
they'll compete for a playoff spot. But even if they get in, I think it's going to be pretty similar to what the Steelers have been. They get in and they generally don't get past the wild card
I don't
round
think they're getting in.
at best for
I don't think they're
Pittsburgh. If
getting in.
not, maybe they don't make it at all. We'll see.
I don't think they get in. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm wondering whether Pittsburgh has more than 8 wins, but that's
Yeah,
just me.
maybe. We shall see. Let's go with the NFC North, the defending champion Chicago Bears, followed by the Detroit Lions, who actually finished last year, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Green Bay
Well,
Packers,
we'll
who
let
were
you start
eliminated
the
by the
NFC North.
Bears in the wild card round. So,
Yep.
who's your NFC North winner?
Well, since I went first with Baltimore, go ahead and give me your NFC North.
Well, I think it's going to be Detroit. I know they lost David Montgomery
Yep.
to free agency.
Yep.
But I think Jahmyr Gibbs, who just got paid, is now he doesn't have to worry about a contract. He could just go out there and kick some butt. They bring in Isaiah Pacheco to replace Montgomery as a bell cow
Yep.
back. If Pacheco is healthy, he's a guy who can get the job done. He's a very violent, courageous runner, and after initial hit, could get you 1 or 2 more yards. After the initial hit, he's very strong. So you hope that he is healthy enough, and if he is, he will combine very well with Gibbs. Like Montgomery and Gibbs were a great 1-2 punch of running back, kind of the lightning and thunder duo, like you saw back in the day with D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart with the Carolina Panthers way back when, under at that particular time in the Panthers' history, when Jerry Richardson was still the owner. But I digress. So I'm concerned about Branch on the back end for the Lions in their secondary, but Hutchinson is back. So that should
Yep.
help with the pass rush. And generally, they are very good on the offensive line, although internally there might be some questions about the middle part of the offensive line, but I think they'll be pretty good there. But I think Detroit, in the worst to first that we see every single year, Detroit's my number one candidate to go from worst to first, even though they had a winning record last year. And think about that, a winning record, despite some of the misses that they
Yep.
have, they ought to be better this year. So I have Detroit winning the division, followed by Chicago, followed by Green Day and Minnesota, whose quarterback situation I don't think very highly of, brings up
No.
the rear.
I was torn, and part of me wants to go with Dan Campbell and Detroit. Um, I have some of the same concerns about their back end. I'm going to go with the Bears.
That's
I
fair.
have to assume that team has learned somewhere along the way to play 4 quarters of football, to not do stupid things on fourth down, and that's on their head coach. That being said,
Dan the Gambler.
that
And
being
he's not
said,
going to stop doing that, by the way. That's
I
part of
like
their
I like
culture.
Caleb
He
better
will
than I
not
like
change
Goff.
that.
I
You
like
wish he
Caleb
would,
better
but he won't.
than I like Goff. Um, I like the Bears' offensive line a little bit better with Bradbury and Joe Thuney. Um, their defense, I think is fine. Um, with Montez Sweat and Jarrett, Devin Bush, in the middle
Mm-hmm.
with along with TJ Edwards. I do like Chicago slightly over Detroit. I just believe a little bit more in Chicago's defense than I do in Detroit's defense.
Mm-hmm.
Hutchinson or not. But I really wanted to pick Dan Campbell because I love Dan Campbell. I really, not just because he played for the Giants. I think he was on a Super Bowl team with the Giants, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now he might have been on a Super Bowl team that lost to the Ravens. Um, but anywho, I'm going to go with Chicago only because I'm a little bit bigger of a believer in their defense than I am Detroit's. I think their offenses are similar. I think they almost cancel each other out. Detroit's offense and Chicago's offense. Um, I think Detroit has an advantage, at running back and WR1 with Amon-Ra St. Brown over Odunze or Burden. But
And
I
Luther
think,
Burden right now apparently has some injury concerns in the
yeah, he's questionable.
preseason. They're gonna he had a very good year last year for the Bears, but right now it looks a little bit banged up. So that's definitely a concern for the Bears. They have Cole Kmet at tight end, who I really, really like. They also kind of
Well,
addressed the
and they have Colts
secondary
Love
part of
too.
their defense in the draft. So I think that part of Detroit will improve in the secondary. But
Well, and they have Loveland
offensively,
as well.
can they do what they did last year? And also, to your point last week, can they get off the faster starts offensively than they were known to get off last season?
True. I like Chicago just a bit better than I like Detroit. Let's go to Green Bay. What are your thoughts on Green Bay?
I mean, they got an early schedule. They got an easy part of their schedule early on. I think they could begin 3-0 and they could tread water, but I don't know when Parsons is coming back. And who's going to be the wide receiver that's going to be the go-to guy? I think they're looking for either a Christian Watson or Matthew Golden specifically to step up. They'll have Tucker Kraft back, and he was having an outstanding year last year before he got hurt. So he'll step up. They have a good offensive line. They generally do in Green Bay, so I don't worry about that so much. But who's going to be the go-to wide receiver to go along with Kraft? when does Parsons come back, and can the defense hold up? When they get to the difficult part of their schedule, which will begin in mid-October, if I remember correctly, when I saw the schedule, they could tread water early, even have a winning record, but you got to get Parsons back, and hopefully projection in mid-October, that is the case for them. And if so, they could be a dangerous team after that. But early on, I think they got to tread water and figure out who the go-to wide receiver is going to be.
Well, I think you hit
And
the nail on the head
Jacobs also, as
with their
they're concerned
schedule.
about his health right now, too, a running back with Josh Jacobs. You're absolutely going to need him. He does everything in an offense.
I
So
think
the
that
health of Jacobs and who the WR1's going to be are the big questions right now for the Packers coming in my opinion.
that and the defense, I do think you have a point with Green Bay. Their schedule is not murderer's row coming out. They're at
No.
Minnesota, the Jets versus Atlanta, and at Tampa Bay. They could
Yeah.
easily be
Those
4
are
0.
winnable games for them.
Before October 11th when they host Chicago and Dallas. So that's when their schedule really,
Beefs up.
shows its
Yeah.
teeth, and then they're at Detroit. So I think it's imperative if Green Bay wants to stay in the hunt, they need to at worst start 3-1. If it's anything less than 3-1 in Green Bay, hopefully 4-0 because they should beat all four of those teams. Anything less, I think Green Bay is going to have a long year because then you start dealing with your NFC North opponents. They have a game at New England this year, not easy. They have at the Rams, home against the Bills, home against the Texans. Green Bay starts off easy, but they finish with a bear of a schedule. I like them to finish third in the
Pun
division.
fully intended. Would you say bear of a schedule?
Yes, no pun intended. Um, I think this is a crucial year for LaFleur.
Mm-hmm.
He came this close to getting canned last year. Green Bay is one of those places. Any coach that's out there would definitely go to Green Bay. I don't love Green Bay's defense. I didn't love it last year. It's better with Parson, but it's a far drop off to Micah Parsons to Brandon Sissy. I I like their quarterback. I like their running backs. I think they'll get enough out of their wide receivers, but I don't think their offense is talented enough to consistently outscore their defense. I think their defense, if do you trust Green Bay's defense without Parsons to get a big stop?
Not really.
They're up
That's it.
they're up
Not
they're up
exactly something
two
that they're
with
known
90
for
seconds
the
to
last
go.
few years
Is
under
Green Bay getting
LaFleur.
that
So
stop?
no. Yeah.
If they're up
And
two
by
with
the
90
way,
seconds,
their defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, is now the head coach
yes, he's the
in Miami.
Dolphins.
So they're breaking someone new in. So we'll see. We'll
You
see.
know,
That's all I can say about that.
so it's I don't trust Green Bay's defense to get a stop when they need it. I really don't. So
That could change with Parsons. But obviously,
it
you got to
could,
get
but
him
we
in there
don't
to
know when
find out.
Parsons is
So,
coming back.
yeah. Yeah.
So
As currently constituted without Parsons, it's definitely a question mark. Very, very fair. Let's go to the AFC South and pick who's going to win the division there, followed by the runner-up. Who do you got?
I have the Houston Texans by far.
We
uh,
agree.
with the AFC South. I think their defense is it's the
Loaded,
best defense
loaded.
in the league. They're the best defense in the league. So
Yeah, Henderson just got paid. Daniil Hunter, Derek Stingley, Kamari
Yeah,
Lassiter.
yeah,
Um, who else? An old 49er, Al-Shair, is also really, really good. He's ferocious in the middle there. So, yeah, they're just
yep,
loaded defensively.
yep. I do like, I think Stroud will have a better year. I don't love their
He
wide
better.
receivers.
This is the year where they're going to determine if they're
It's
going to
Nico
pay him
Collins.
his second contract as a quarterback. He's got all the motivation of the world coming in. He's got Take Dell coming
Here's my
back,
thing.
a receiver as well, along with Nico Collins
You
being
know,
there. And
Montgomery's a good
they
running
pick up
back.
David Montgomery at running back. So theoretically, their running
Here's my
back
thing about
attack should be
Houston.
pretty strong.
They're outside of Nico Collins. I mean, are you worried about Xavier Hutchinson or Jalen Noel? Is that
I mean,
scaring
Jalen Noel
anybody?
is not a bad W. Think about that. Jalen Noel, your WR3, Tank Dell, your WR2, or the other way, Nico Collins, and who's a tight end also. Got a pretty good.
Dalton Schultz.
Dalton Schultz, yeah. So he came from Buffalo, didn't he? He's a pretty good tight
Yeah.
end in his own right. So Stroud has, and in the offensive line, they addressed that during the draft. With also they brought in Reed Blankenship to the Texans at safety from Philadelphia. So think about that. They have Wyatt Teller on the left side of the interior of the offensive line, so that's an improvement. And Braden Smith as well. So they brought back Evan Brown too, who's a little bit old at this point, but can still maybe get the job done. So yeah, there's no excuses for CJ Stroud not to put it together this year if he could just stay on the field.
I agree. I agree.
But what about Jacksonville? Why not Jacksonville, who won the division last year, really came on late before they lost in the wild card round to Buffalo?
I think Jacksonville was a perfect storm last year. Look, I think Jacksonville is a good team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love um, their chances to I don't love what Jacksonville did either in the draft or in the offseason. I think they were very quiet. I think they were very muted. I'm hoping that they're not drunk on their success last year. I think Jacksonville is one of my nominees to take a step backwards this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I think Jacksonville is going back to the 5 win days? I do not. But
No.
could I see Jacksonville being an 8 win team? I
It
can't.
should be at least a wild card, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, I'm not even. I don't have Jacksonville as a playoff team. I
Really?
don't. I
Wow.
only think one team's coming out of the South, and that's Houston. I don't love. Yeah, well, yeah, I guess maybe Indy, but I'm not sold on their quarterback situation. But I Jacksonville, I think, might take a step back. Again, I mean, who's scaring you? Tootin as their running back. You know, Brian Thomas Jr. supposedly isn't even happy down there. He's been a trade rumor, you know. Then you have Packer Washington and Jacoby Myers. I think Jacksonville takes a step back this year. I think they finished third. I don't even think they finished second. Assuming health,
Really?
I'd like Indianapolis to finish second. Maybe a playoff team, maybe not.
Mm.
I don't necessarily trust what's going on with Indianapolis, only because of their quarterback and his ability to stay on the field or not do stupid stuff when the games get tough. But
Right.
you know,
I'm surprised actually. Indianapolis over Jacksonville. I'll disagree with you on that one. The one concern I have with Jacksonville, you pointed out the receiving core is pretty strong. They got some depth there with Parker Washington. Brian Thomas Jr. apparently is having a better camp, so we'll see if he can restore the work. How many guys who were good as rookies were not so good last year, by the way? There's a real trend of guys who had strong rookie years, like Brian
yeah,
Thomas Jr., or tailed off in year number two. Like Dominic Puni for the Niners, or guys like that. But maybe they recover this year. But they are deep at wide receiver. They lost Travis Etienne to the Saints, and they lost Devin Lloyd, who was a big part of the unit that was number one against the run last year, giving up 85 yards a game. I think they'll still be good against the run, but maybe not quite as good because Devin Lloyd took his talents to Carolina, if I remember correctly. So, but I have Jacksonville finishing behind Houston in the division and being a wild card playoff team under Liam Cohen if Trevor Lawrence, and if they could somehow work out a way to get Travis Hunter, who I think is going to play mostly defense this year, and then maybe
yes.
some special packages offensively that Liam Cohen's going to work it out from the gadget portion of his playbook. I'd look for his role to be that way on offense and for him to play defense 90% of the time at defensive back, which he's pretty good at. So they're still good defensively, especially against the run. Offensively, we'll see how they deal with running back and if Trevor Lawrence can continue to take the step forwards that he took last year, the second half of the season under Liam Cohen.
What do you think about Indy?
Don't trust
Indy,
them.
I don't trust them either.
I don't know. Like Richard, they go back with Richardson, with Jones. There's a saying, if you have two quarterbacks on your roster, you have none. And they just lost Pittman as a wide receiver, as one of their better wide receivers last year to Pittsburgh. They traded him. So
Yep.
I don't know what Indy's going to do offensively. Defensively,
They still have Pearson.
But offensively, I think Jacksonville and Houston are going to be better than them offensively, and both of them are good defensively. So I don't trust Indy at all, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Do you?
I don't know. I like the running back, Taylor. I,
Yeah,
I think Alec Pierce is better than anybody Jacksonville's throwing out at
I
wide receiver
agree. I,
one.
I I
Um,
agree. But think about Pierce and
I
Pittman. I
think
mean,
Tyler
who did
Warren,
they?
not because he's just from Penn State. Tyler Warren is better than than any playmaker Jacksonville has on their roster from the tight end position. Their offensive line is getting a little long in the tooth. Quentin Nelson, what used to be an All Pro left guard, I don't know if he's still that guy. Um, their defense, I do like, assuming health, I do like Sauce Gardner and Travarius Ward on the outside playing cornerback. Um, I don't know about their quarterback situation. I don't think Richardson is going to be QB2. In fact, he's listed as QB3 behind Riley Leonard. Um, so I think Indianapolis. Now, there's a huge edge at quarterback to Jacksonville. Indianapolis has
Yeah,
more playmakers to beat you than Jacksonville does.
yeah. But I think Jacksonville is better defensively, and I think they have the better quarterback
Oh,
to
Jacksonville
begin with.
definitely has the
So,
better
so we'll,
quarterback.
so we'll, it could go either way. I mean, yeah, Warren is a good player. I like,
Pierce is great.
I like their offensive line and Charvarius Ward. I forgot they acquired him. Is a pretty good defensive back. So I think defensively they'll be okay. But offensively, going up against Houston, going against Jacksonville, I think will still be good defensively. You do have, Josh Hines Ward and Trayvon Walker as their pass rushers, so that's a pretty damn good duo of pass rushers, if you ask me, for the Jaguars. So we
Yep.
already know about Houston with Hunter and Anderson and company. So it could be a case of that the Colts are not going to be good enough offensively because the other team's defenses in the division and even Tennessee's defense is probably going to be better under Salah. I don't know how they're going to do offensively. That's a huge question mark for the
Yep.
Titans, but defensively they could be pretty good. So I think that might be too much for the Colts in their own division.
Indy has not an easy. They're home against Baltimore. They're at
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City, home against Houston, then home against Washington. They could be 1-3.
Yeah.
They could be
If
one
they're
and
one
three.
and three, then good luck
You
after
know,
that. So they need a fast start. They don't have
yeah,
a lot of margin for error. If you have
yeah.
margin for error, you could get off to a slow start like the 0-2 Giants winning a Super Bowl eventually under Eli Manning and Toph Coughlin back in the day. But they don't have a lot of margin for error, so they need to get off to a fast start.
What do we think about Tennessee?
Wondering about the quarterback situation. The buzzword keeps getting thrown around with Cam Ward. He's very inaccurate. I mean, guys get open, but he just can't deliver the football to them accurately. It's not decision making, it's just his ability to complete passes that he absolutely needs to complete. So, big questions at quarterback. Calvin Ridley is a wide receiver, is a really, really good wide receiver for Cam Ward to throw to. And
They got
defensively,
Carnell Tate.
and
We'll see how
Cardell
he turns
Tate they
out.
drafted, yeah. So
And Wandale Robinson
I
came over
think
from the
I
Giants.
think they have talent on the offensive side of the ball finally, but is Cam Ward the guy that is going to propel those guys? I'm not so sure at this point. So I have huge concerns about Ward and his accuracy. Defensively, generally the Titans are pretty good defensively. I see no reason why that won't be the case under Salah. But the big question right now with the Titans is offensively, especially the quarterback position.
Agreed. I still think the Titans are a 5-win team.
They might be.
You know,
They might be. And oh, by the way, deep quarterback draft last year. If you get another season of Cam Ward being inaccurate and you're a 5-win team, that gives you a chance to get a quarterback out of next year's class. So
I would
that's
draft a
something to
quarterback
watch
anyway.
in Nashville.
I
Yeah.
would draft.
Yeah.
I'm not. I loved Cam Ward in college, but
I did too. I like how he played in Miami. He had a real moxie, but apparently he's got no personality, no leadership skills, and he's inaccurate as a quarterback. That's a bad combination.
yeah. So I still think their defense with Franklin Myers and Simmons,
Yeah.
will keep them in games, especially
Yep.
with Salah
Yep.
running that defense. I don't know that Tennessee has the offensive talent to beat anybody. I
The
really
horses for courses, as you might say.
That's right. So I think it's going to be another long year for Tennessee, and I think
Mm-hmm.
they will, depending on how he plays and how he looks. I don't want to throw the B word out yet. If they're at the top of the draft, I think and their season goes left, which I think it will. It's just a matter of whether how much of a role Cam Ward plays in that, can I see them looking at a quarterback at the top of next year's draft? Maybe not the top spot, but in the top 10, which I definitely think they'll be drafting in the top 10. I do. I really do.
Fair enough. I think we agree on that. Let's go to the NFC South. I guess I'll begin
Yep.
and pick the NFC South winner. I've been high on the Saints, but I'm going to go with the Carolina Panthers because I think defensive right now, I have fewer questions about the Panthers defensively than I do about the Saints. Offensively, I think they're going to be really good if what's his name? The wide receiver out of Arizona State, Jordan. I forget his last name. He's banged up right now, but if he's on the field, he's fast and he's going to get the job done left and right. So we'll see what happens with that, along with Chris Olave. Tyler Shuck, who I like as a quarterback, who can make all the throws, can move as well.
Jordan Tyson is
Questions
the name you're
about
looking
Jordan
for.
Tyson. Thank you. Thank you. So he needs to be out there for the Saints offense to be as dynamic as it could be with Kellen Moore as head coach, and of course Tyler Shuck as quarterback. But defensively, I've got questions about them, particularly in the secondary. Don't
Yep.
have the same questions about the Panthers. I mean, they had Devin Lloyd from Jacksonville, which is a great signing for them. They had Jalen Phillips at outside linebacker. You have Jalen McMillan as a wide receiver one, who's really, really good for Bryce Young. And I think Bryce Young, they drafted Monroe Freeling in the first round for an offensive tackle. Chris Purcell in the third round at wide receiver. So the Freeling acquisition by way of the draft is going to make the offensive line even better, which is going to make Young better. So I like the Panthers to win the NFC South, followed by the Saints, followed by the Buccaneers, and then the Falcons bring up the rear. What about you?
I like the Carolina Panthers. I have questions on their offensive line. Right now, they're two quote unquote starting. Freeling's going to start because right now it has both of their starting offensive tackles, Aquanu and Moten, are both out. That doesn't help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Monroe Freeling will take one of those spots. And you're going to need, either Reese or Rasheed Walker to come in and play the other one. I don't know how long Aquanu and Moten are going to be out for. I do like Bryce Young. I like Tech McMillan is great. Wasn't he the offensive rookie of the year? If I'm not mistaken,
I think so.
last year. I loved
Yeah.
running back. I think they're fine with Hubbard. Even Rico Dowdle they lost to Pittsburgh. Um, so I do like Carolina. I like Devin Lloyd leading that defense. Um, I think their secondary's decent enough, and in that division, there's just no clear runner. I do I like Carolina to come out of that division with 9 wins.
I think they'll be a 10-win team, actually, but I'll take a look at their schedule to see about that. But I guess we agreed. Who comes in second, actually? Do you have the Saints like I do, or maybe the Bucks, who have Vita Vea back, by the way? They extended him by 1 year, so he's ended his holdout. He's in camp now. And obviously, the Baker Mayfield situation remains unresolved. But who comes in behind the Panthers, the Saints or the Bucks?
The Saints do, and I think because I really like the Saints wide receiver room with Tyson and Olave.
Yeah.
Uh, I think ATN and Kamara are a good running back tandem. I think Shuck will be
Mhm.
okay. I don't love their defense. Yes, they still have Cam Jordan there. Um,
Who's
I
not getting any younger, but
No, he's not.
he is a savvy, wily veteran, and is a great leader of that team. So his presence is definitely way more beneficial than it isn't.
Yeah, and I think the Saints have a tough schedule. I mean, their first two games at Detroit, at Baltimore. I mean, good luck.
Not
Uh,
bad. Definitely get some early battle testing.
so I mean, and they lost, but they looked, I guess, decent enough against Jacksonville. I mean, granted, their starters weren't playing. They didn't even show up in LA yesterday. I mean, that's ridiculous. And Ty Simpson tore that defense apart. So I think the Saints have a lot of work to do on the defensive side of the ball. I picked the Saints second because I don't really have anything else. I don't like the way Atlanta, again, you can't judge too much on preseason because you're looking at people who play. There's a reason for it, and it's usually just a sprinkling of starters. I don't love what I've seen out of Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta has a quarterback, whether it's Tua or Penix. Both are injury prone for different reasons. You got to love Bijan Robinson. You got to love Drake London. Um, Kyle Pitts finally figured it out. So I do like what they have on that side of the ball.
Who's going to
Um,
throw the
well,
football
that's
to
just
them?
it. I just said they don't have a quarterback. So, I don't on defense, nothing stands out to me, on their defense. Yeah, they have Zadarius Smith, you know, uh, wasn't he a Green Bay Packer at one point? Um, but
Yes.
Jesse Bates is a decent safety. I don't love the Atlanta defense. I don't love their quarterback, and we'll see how well Stefanski does down there, and how well he can draw up the off. I think Atlanta should be able to score. I don't know if they'll be able to score enough because I don't know if their quarterback can do it, whoever that may be, and B, um, I think their defense is going to give up a lot of points.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So we agree on Carolina, followed by the Saints. Let us go to the AFC East, the final AFC East and the NFC East. So who wins the AFC East?
I like Buffalo. I really do like Buffalo. Um, I think that this is going to be a big year for them. I think they finally um, have someone who can maximize the talent that they do have, with Shakir and DJ Moore on the outside, along with Keon Coleman. James Cook is a fabulous running back. Josh Allen is still Josh Allen. I think it's going to be a big year for Buffalo. I like their offensive line better than I like others in the conference in the division. I do like Buffalo to win the division. But while we're talking about Buffalo, we need to take a timeout for a minute. Thoughts and prayers and really heartfelt condolences to Ed Oliver, who lost his
Yeah,
son yesterday. I mean, just a
yeah,
tragic,
yeah.
tragic story for Ed Oliver and their family. Thoughts and prayers. All the peace in the world goes out to Ed Oliver and his family and his teammates.
Well said. Extremely sad. I can't think of anything worse than a
So
situation like
just
that.
absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's what can you say? Life is
Life is cruel.
unpredictable and
So
life is extremely unfair and things happen. So all the best to the Oliver family in that situation. It's got to be devastating.
now the question I have about Buffalo,
Hmm.
their schedule coming out of the gate is hard.
Yeah.
At Houston, home
Hmm.
against Detroit, home
Hmm.
against the Chargers, home against the Patriots, at the Rams. That's hard. That is
Gauntlets.
a tough front five before they finally go to Vegas before their bye week, in week 6, to play the Raiders. I think they need to tread water and come out of their first 6. I think if they can come out of their first 6, 3-3, they'll be okay. But
Yeah.
that is a tough schedule. So that's where I have pause about. Let's look at New England's schedule. See, and here's where it gets tough. New England's schedule, conversely, at Seattle, obviously very tough. Then they have 2 cupcakes. Well, no, I shouldn't say cupcakes. 2 very winnable games. Home Steelers at Jacksonville, and then they go to Buffalo, and then they play at home against Las Vegas and at home against the Jets. The schedule favors the Patriots, which is why I'm kind of wishy washy about it. I like the Patriots running back room. I think they got better at wide receiver with playmakers with Brown and Dobbs. Their defense is still going to be a problem, with Barmore and Durden and Milton Williams. Um, but overall, I'm not sold on their offensive. Will Campbell at left tackle. We got to see how
We'll
good he
see.
is.
Yeah.
Elijah Vera Tucker. Look, he was great.
His arms
He
are not
was
gonna
a
get any
stud.
bigger, so they gotta
Vera
somehow
Tucker Vera Tucker is a
maximize
stud.
his ability despite the arms. So it's
Vera Tucker's a stud, but he's not healthy ever. He hasn't been healthy since he left Southern Cal.
yeah,
He's missed a ton of games for the Jets.
yeah,
But when healthy, Vera Tucker's a very good guard. On the right side, they have Morgan Moses and Onwenu on the right side. I I need to see what this New England offensive line can do. I think defensively they'll be fine. Obviously, they have a quarterback, they have a running back, they have playmakers on the outside. But I have, until we can see what that offensive line does, I have concerns about it. The thing going in New England's favor is they don't have a very tough schedule up until, yes, they have to play at Buffalo and at Seattle, but up until week 7, they have Jets, Vegas, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh. Even if they lose their 2 tough games, they can still go into week 7 at the Bears at 4-2. So that does give me pause about picking Buffalo because their schedule is very hard up front. But New England's schedule gets tougher later in the year. They have Chicago, they have Detroit, they have Green Bay. Now Detroit and Green Bay are both at home, but they're at Chicago. They're at the Chargers, at the Chiefs, home against Denver. Their schedule is not very tough. Miami's 2 easy wins. The Jets are going to be better than people think. I don't think the Jets are going to be a playoff team, but would it shock me to see the Jets win 7 games? No. Nope, it wouldn't.
yeah.
And Miami's dreadful. Miami.
Yeah,
I have
I've
Miami
got
considered for the number 1 pick in the draft.
I've got New England winning the division.
Yep.
I
could buy that. It's a coin flip.
And I'll tell you why. One, I love what they've acquired at wide receiver for Drake May. You bring in AJ Brown, who played for Mike Vrabel, and you also bring in Romeo Doubs from Green Bay, who's going to be a very good WR2 for them. They're deeper wide receiver now. They absolutely had to address that. I like the addition of Elijah Vera Tucker if he's healthy. He's certainly experienced. Campbell's bound to improve. I don't think he can get much worse than he was last year. So I think he's going to improve. But here's the reason why I lean, aside from the schedule, as you just pointed out, I lean towards New England over Buffalo because you have a rookie head coach in Buffalo with Joe Brady versus an established, successful head coach in Mike Vrabel. I know about the Diana Rossini situation, but I don't think that's going to be as big of a factor as a lot of people. I think it's a bigger story in the media than it is with the players in the locker room for New England. So I don't think that's going to be as much of a distraction as people might think. Ultimately, I think Mike Vrabel is a more established head coach versus Joe Brady, who's a rookie head coach. We'll see how he does, but you kind of know what to expect from Mike Vrabel. So I'm going with the Patriots to win the division, followed by the Bills coming in second place. I think the Jets might finish in third place, which would be an improvement for them, and the Dolphins bring up the rear.
Yeah, the Jets have, you know what? Don't sleep on the Jets. They have some talent.
They do.
Brees Hall is a phenomenal running back.
But he's hurt right now. And again,
they got Adonai Mitchell from Indianapolis.
Who's the quarterback? Geno
Well,
Smith.
I was going to get to that because I think much like other places, Geno's obviously going to be the starter. I think the Jets at some point need to bring in Kate Klubnik to see what they have. Because if Kate Klubnik can do the job, the Jets have 3 first-round picks next year. You can use those first-round picks to bolster other parts of the team. They have Bailey, on defense, who I think could be a problem as a pass rusher because I think they're a little short back there. Minka Fitzpatrick they have in the secondary. They have a decent offensive line with Fashanu, Parham, Myers, Tittman, and Membu. I think the Jets are going to be a tough out. Could I see the Jets winning 7 or 8 games? I could, and I think they will.
It's kind of a similar situation with the Raiders in terms of quarterback that they drafted versus versus
One's a fourth round pick.
versus the veteran you bring in. But it's different for the Jets because Klubnik was number 110 overall in the draft, whereas Fernando Mendoza was number one. You know he's going to be the starter eventually. They do need to play Klubnik
The
this
Jets have
season,
a
even
much
if
better
Geno
roster
Smith
than the
is
Raiders.
playing well, because he's a third round pick,
Yeah.
not a first round pick. So he may or may not work out. Whereas Mendoza has to work out because he was number one overall. So
The Jets have more pieces than the Raiders. The
they
Jets have a
do.
good offensive line,
Yeah.
and they have good playmakers.
Yeah.
The Raiders, not so much.
Yeah. Brees Hall's obviously got to be healthy, so we'll see how that goes. But
Braylon Allen's a good running back.
But Klubnik, yeah, but I agree. But Klubnik, they should play him this year, even if Geno Smith is playing well. And I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. So I think Smith's best days might be behind him. You know, when he played for Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks, and he turned himself around for this first day with the Jets, which was absolutely disastrous to say the least. The bus word was definitely getting thrown around with him until he showed up in Seattle and acquitted himself well, playing for Pete Carroll back then. So, but yeah, see what you have in Klubnik this season makes absolute sense given that he was drafted in the third round, not the first round. So you definitely want to know if you need to go quarterback in next year's draft or if Klubnik you think is the guy, then you build around him, which is not a bad thing either. The Jets will have that opportunity. Miami brings up the rear.
Yeah, and I think the Jets have a tough schedule. You know, in terms, they open up at Tennessee, the Robert Saleh revenge game. We'll see how that goes, and then it gets tough. Home Green Bay, at Detroit, at Chicago. It's not unreasonable to see them opening up 1-3. There's, then they get a bye week essentially with Cleveland at home. Then they go to New England before they get two more bye weeks against Miami and Las Vegas. So the Jets need to weather the storm coming out of the gate. It is a must-win game against Tennessee. They cannot lose to Tennessee because if they do, it's not unreasonable to see them starting 0-4.
Yeah, although be careful predicting what a team's going to do the following week based on the previous week. The NFL's not really like that. I agree with you in theory. That being said, in the middle of the season, especially, we see teams that are not supposed to beat certain teams do it all the time.
Yeah, it does. But
there is a very thin line between the best teams in the NFL and the worst teams, more so than in any other sport, in my opinion.
Are the Jets better than Green Bay, Detroit, or Chicago? No.
Not on paper.
No.
As you mentioned before, even though the paper might get better for some other teams, as I mentioned, on paper, yes, but on the field, sometimes it turns out different. So we'll see.
True.
But the Jets, I think the Jets are going to improve and not finish in last place. So there's something to be said for that. In any division they might play in, much less the AFC East.
I mean, let's look at what Miami's throwing out there. I mean, Malik Willis. I mean,
who are the wide receivers he's going to throw to?
Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert, and Caleb Douglas. Awful.
Not exactly a nightmare for the opposing defensive coordinator.
And granted, the Giants have
Devin A-Chain is going to be, their offensive everything this year, but you can't give it to them on every single play.
Their tight end, they have Dulcich and they have Kazmarek out of Ohio State.
Not bad.
Now, granted, the Giants have an elite front seven. They went down for joint practices, ones versus ones. Forget the game yesterday, which the Giants just bullied Miami. Yeah. But even Miami beat reporters were saying, Jesus, the Giants are big and they're fierce in terms of their defensive front seven. But we'll get into that in a minute. I worry about Miami's offensive line. Paul Proctor, Brewer, Savanea, and Austin Jackson. It's going to be a long year for Miami. I see Miami winning 3 games. Let's see who they
number one overall pick potentially. We shall see.
Well, they're at Las Vegas. You want to talk about the toilet bowl coming right out of the gate, and then they're at San Fran. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. San Fran. If San Fran loses to the Rams in week 1, which I'm preparing myself for, obviously the get right game against
San
Miami
Francisco's
in week
always
2.
giving the Rams a problem. Always.
I know. I am well aware of that. But this game's not going to be in LA where the 49ers, maybe 49er fans will show up in Australia, but the Rams wanted the 49ers to join them on this trip because they're well aware of how well the 49ers tend to do in SoFi. Yep. So we'll see if the change of scenery helps the Rams out, especially if Kittle doesn't play. which remains
That's
to
a
be
complete
seen.
wild card game. I don't know. Yes, it counts. San Francisco, LA, all the way across the world. No matter who wins that game, it's an asterisk game for me. It's just such a
Yeah.
wild card.
It
The
still counts
circumstances.
in the
It does
standings in a
still,
tough
but it
division.
counts as
So,
one game in the standings.
yeah.
I would not read into it either way.
Yeah.
Who comes out on top in that game?
If the Niners end up winning that game, I will absolutely be delighted because I'm being very realistic with that situation entirely. So we'll see. NFC East. I guess I'll
Well,
start.
yep, you're starting with the NFC East.
I hate to say it, but I got to go with the Cowboys.
I do too.
Caleb Downs, Rashawn Gary coming in as a free agent, Caleb Downs in the draft, Malachi Lawrence. Their defense should improve tremendously this season. Offensively, Javonte Williams at running back, Pickens and Lamb, wide receiver, Ferguson at tight end, all good. Decent offensive line that they generally have. I like the Cowboys, and in a little bit of an upset, I'm going to say the Giants finish behind them. The Eagles go third, and the Commanders bring up the rear, and Dan Quinn is one of the 6 or 7 that gets fired this season. So
Yep.
Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, Commanders. What about you?
I think the Giants are still a year away from being a
Mm-hmm.
playoff team. I think the Giants win 8 games, maybe nine. I think they're going to
Improvement.
give teams all sorts of fits, and I think you're going to see the Giants beat teams that they're not supposed that you didn't think they were going to beat. I do like the Cowboys' offense is elite. They're going to be tough for anybody to stop. I do still have questions with the Giants. Um, can Malachi Fields and Isaiah Likely be that complement to Malik Neighbors on the outside?
Yeah.
How well does Jackson Dart
And his
adapt?
neighbor's going to come back too. If neighbors does come back and
Neighbors
they
is
have a
going to come back.
full deck on offense,
He's
then
probably going to be back week one.
yeah,
Neighbors is essentially he's in a red non-contact jersey. Obviously, he hasn't played his preseason. I would be astounded if he's not back week one. If he's not back week one, I can almost guarantee he'll be back week two in Los Angeles against the Rams. The Cowboys, I think their defense got better enough for them to be scary this year. Um, I think I think they will have a tough game opening up at Giant Stadium on Sunday
yeah.
night.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's even a chance the Cowboys lose that game
They could,
against the Giants.
they could,
I,
yeah.
you know, I
It is not out of the realm of possibility, but I'm actually going to pick them to, based on picking them to win the division, I'll pick them to win that game on the basis of that and the fact that I think they have a little bit more 1-53 than the Giants do right now. But
yep,
obviously, the Giants playing at home are going to play with pride. So I think if the Cowboys win, it won't be by way of a blowout. But I'll say the Cowboys win because I think 1-53, they are a little bit deeper, a little bit better right now than the Giants.
yeah, they do have more talent than the Giants right now. I do, I I still have questions about the back end of their defense. Uh, Deron Bland, Malik Hooker, Caleb Downs.
I mean, Bland's good,
You
when
know,
healthy.
yeah, when healthy. Kobe Durant. I think they're going to be better enough. I do like their Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary, um, Quentin Williams, who they got from the
I forgot. I
from the
forgot
Jets.
about that. They acquired it from the Jets. I mean, the Cowboys are probably going to be in the upper half of the league in defense this year, which means that's where I picked them to win the division because the offense is going to put points on the board. But the
Yeah,
defense is, I think, going to be top half of the league this year with all the talent that they've added by way of free agency, trades with Williams, free agency with Gary, and of course the draft with Lawrence and Downs.
now the Cowboys open up obviously in New York against the Giants week one. Then they host the Commanders and host the Ravens, and then they go to Houston to play the Texans before coming home for Tampa Bay. So the Cowboys, have some games there, to open up. Um, let's take a look at Philly before I get into the Giants. Let's look at Philly's.
Well, with Philly, obviously the wide receiver room might be quiet. Devontae Smith will probably be their WR1. They draft Makai Lemon. They still have Dallas Goddard at tight end. And obviously Saquon Barkley needs to have a much better year this season than last season. The offensive line remains strong with Dickinson, with Jurgens, and Lane Johnson is going to be his final season, apparently. So he wants to go out with a bang. So I picked the Giants to finish second behind the Cowboys. That could change, obviously, or might be wrong. But there's something about Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts and Sean Mannion. We'll see how that dynamic works. And they obviously have the tush push, but I feel like offensively they might not be as good. And defensively, they lose Reed Blankenship.
Yep.
From a secondary that wasn't as good last year, they lose Reed Blankenship to free agency. He goes to Houston, which makes a great defense even better, in my opinion. So I think defensively they take a step back, but offensively it's all about Barkley. Can
Yep.
Barkley be the player that he was in year one with Philadelphia? If he is, look out. If not, and obviously Barkley staying healthy is another question. He is prone to injuries. So we'll see if he can stay healthy again for the third straight year, which would be remarkable for him. But I feel like Philly will not be as good defensively and maybe take a slight step back offensively with
Yep.
Brown being out of there.
They open up. They have a soft open. They home against Washington, then at the Titans. Soft open.
So
Then
win both
then
those
it gets
games,
real.
yeah. They'll
Then
be
it
one
gets
of the
real. They
2
go
0
to
teams we'll be
Chicago
talking
and host
about.
the Rams.
Yeah.
So it gets real, and then they're at home against Jacksonville and Carolina and Dallas. I could see Philly starting 4-3. I could easily see
I
that.
can see them starting 3 and 4.
Yes. Now with the Giants, I have a couple of questions about the Giants. I think that the Giants are going to be a very violent team under John Harbaugh. I like the way they're playing. Their front seven is fantastic. I mean, their front seven is. I have questions if they can stop the run. Losing Dexter Lawrence hurt, but they brought in DJ Reader and Shelby Harris, more than capable. Their inside linebackers are tremendous. Arvell Reese is going to be a household name by the end of the year, if he's not already. Tremaine Johnson, Tremaine Edmonds, and Arvell Reese manning the middle linebacker positions. You want to talk about end to end? I think their middle linebackers can be put in the same category at the end of the year as San Francisco's. I think that's how good they are.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about, I want to see how the defense comes together. Denard Wilson, I think, as the defensive coordinator, has this defense flying, and of course they can rush the passer for days with Abdul Carter, who I think is just going to be a menace this year. Brian
Burns.
I think Kayvon Thibodeau.
You see what you get from Kayvon Thibodeau is kind of a question mark right now.
Yeah,
very, very
he's
talented.
Coming up for I think Kayvon's going to have a big year. I really do. Yeah. I really think he's going to make the Giants have a hard decision to make next year, whether to sign him or let him walk.
I think the front seven for the Giants looks strong. The secondary, we'll see how that comes along. And obviously, offensively, we have to see with Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterboo, how Neighbors is going to be. I like the addition of Likely, as you mentioned.
Now,
by the way, the offense. How are you feeling about the offensive line for the Giants?
I like the Giants' offensive line. The only one I'm a little concerned about is left guard with John Runyon Jr.
Is Thomas healthy?
What's that?
Is Thomas healthy? Andrew Thomas?
Andrew Thomas is healthy. One of the best left tackles in the game. He never gets appreciated because he gets hurt a lot. But
he's really
Andrew
good.
Thomas is an elite left
stay
tackle.
On the field.
Andrew Thomas is an elite left tackle. Running, John Michael Schmitz at center is okay. CeCe Mauinoa is going to be huge at right guard. Huge. I think he's going to be a borderline Pro Bowl guard in year one. And Jermaine Illuminor is just a solid rock at right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Sneaky.
And you have Patrick Ricard, the massive fullback in the backfield, which is going to be a great asset to both Scatterboo and Dart.
Yeah, and not only that, sneaky pickup this week for the Giants. Mm-hmm. Najee Harris has been added to the running back room. He was a 1,000-yard rusher for his first 4 years in Pittsburgh. And the only reason why is because he got hurt.
That's a very good pickup. And Harbaugh would know about Najee Harris from coaching at Baltimore all those years.
The Giants, pardon my French, the Giants are going to beat the shit out of people. Maybe not on the scoreboard, but they're so big. I mean, across the board. You had Miami. They are just a big football.
Yeah, it'll be like an Olivia Newton-John song. Let's get physical.
Well, that's what they're
going to get very physical this year.
John Harbaugh, in his pitch to Pat Ricard to come up to, he's like, "We're building a bully." here in East Rutherford. Do you want to come be a part of it?
And Ricard will fit right,
You know,
will fit really well into that kind of a mold.
I think finally Jackson Dart is going to have weapons, specifically Malik Neighbors. We talked about Isaiah Likely being a matchup problem wherever he is. I think
Mm-hmm.
Malachi Fields, their draft pick out of Notre Dame, he's
Mm-hmm.
huge, is going to be really good. I think Odell Beckham makes this team better. They have this rookie kicker named Zavada. I think he's going to be this year's Aubrey from Dallas last year. He can boot
Really?
the hell out of the ball. And they have an all-pro punter, Jordan Stout, out of Penn State, who was
Yeah.
with Baltimore. I think the Giants are going to shock a lot of people this year. I see the Giants having 9 wins. I I go back and forth whether I think it's going to be them or Philly. I think the Giants do just finish third and just miss the playoffs, but I think the Giants are going to be a team nobody wants to face come Thanksgiving because I think as they get used to the system and get used to each other, this team's going to be an absolute
Mm-hmm.
menace to
Yeah.
teams. They really are. I think Washington takes a step back. I got to see how good Jaden Daniels is. I honestly, I
Yeah.
you know,
I
he,
don't know. I don't know if his head's in the right place right now with the Jersey situation at LSU and you mentioned Sonny Styles has kind of struggled in preseason so far.
yes,
So obviously,
yeah,
maybe the adjustment and the learning curve for Sonny Styles is bigger than we anticipated, but I think he'll be okay.
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of questions on the offensive side of the ball for the Commanders, and you want Styles to improve the run defense of the Washington
Now
Commanders. So
let's. I hate
they're
doing this.
destined. They're destined to finish in last place in the NFC East, in
Now
my
let's.
opinion.
I hate doing
I don't
this.
think they have
Let's
enough
go
talent
through.
overall.
I want your honest to God's opinion. They have their bye in week 8. The Giants. They have
Mm-hmm.
their bye in week 8. I want you to prognosticate their first 7 games.
Can you
Um,
give me the schedule, please?
yes, I'm going to. At home, Dallas, week 1.
Ooh, I'll say they lose that game. 0 and
Okay,
1.
0-1. At LA Rams, week 2.
Loss.
So they're 0-2. Okay. Home Tennessee Titans.
Win.
Home Arizona Cardinals.
Win.
At Washington.
Win.
Home New Orleans.
Woo. I'll say win.
Okay. At Houston.
Loss.
So you have
Four
pretty
and
much what I
three.
have. I
Four and
think the
three.
Giants will start off 4-3. We
Yeah,
completely agree.
it's not bad.
You know, we completely agree. I think there's a chance they beat Dallas. I think that. Well, let me rephrase that. I think there's a chance they beat either Dallas or LA. I think they're going to shock one of those teams. I honestly do. Um, but and
You
then
know who they could beat? What was the middle again after those guys? Or
at home Dallas, at Rams, home Titans, home Cardinals,
right.
at
Those are wins.
Commanders, home Saints, at Texans.
They might be able to beat the Texans too.
Yep.
Let's see how CJ Stroud's going to play. You want to, I mean, that's going to be two very physical teams going against each
Yep.
other.
Yep.
So I actually see a situation. Could they beat the Rams? Yes. Could they beat the Cowboys? Yes. But the Cowboys generally do
They're going to be
well.
underdogs,
The
fast
Cowboys
underdogs in that.
generally play well against the Giants.
Yep.
But I can see them beating Houston. I could one of those three, games that I think they're going to lose. They could win. I don't think they'll win all of them or even two of them, but one of them, yes, and it might be Houston, depending on how CJ Stroud is playing.
Yep. And then they have a bye week before they go to Philadelphia, home Washington, home Jacksonville, at
Mm-hmm.
Indy, home Niners, at Seahawks, home Browns.
They got a hard schedule. Wow.
Yep. At
Yeah.
Lions,
Yeah.
at Dallas, and then home Philadelphia.
Maybe I don't know if Philadelphia maybe Philadelphia finished second place if they have an easier schedule than the Giants do, but I'm still going to stick with that pick for them to finish runner up to the Cowboys. But
Let's see let's see Phillies.
what a challenging schedule they have. It's going
Let,
to do them a
let's see
lot of good.
let's do the same with Philly through the first 7 weeks, just for ha-has versus
Okay.
Washington,
Win,
at Tennessee,
win,
at Bears,
loss,
home Rams,
win,
home Jaguars,
Loss.
Home Panthers.
I'll say win.
Home Cowboys.
Loss.
So it's if that
Four and
happens,
three as well.
4-3 or 5-2.
There's a couple of those that could go either way.
I think they lose to Chicago and the Rams, and Dallas. But that's just me. So they could be 4-3 as well.
Yeah.
Now let's just for to be fair, let's look at Dallas's opening schedule.
Okay.
Before we get into man, I know we're running a little bit over. Dallas's opening schedule at New York versus Washington versus Baltimore at Houston versus Tampa at Green Bay at Philadelphia. I could see them being 5-2.
Yeah.
Maybe
4-3 or even 4-3 or even 3-4. Can't be 3-4 if you're going to win the division. So I'd lean more towards 5-2 and 4-3.
So, but
going to be awfully competitive in the NFC East. That's for sure. The NFC West, I think, is the best division, but maybe the most intriguing is the NFC East.
Yep, absolutely.
Speaking of East, American League East, Major League Baseball, Yankees. Couple of questions.
Yep.
They're 3 games out in the American League East. Quietly, they're making their move against Tampa.
Yes.
We thought they might not win the division, but I begin to have second thoughts, especially when Judge comes back.
Belly's back today, I believe.
Huh?
Bellinger's back today.
Yeah, he is. So offensively, theoretically, they'll get better, even though the catcher position is still a bugaboo, among other things. But the Yankees are making their moves. So Giancarlo Stanton now injured his other calf.
He's done.
Probably out for the rest of the year. Is his Yankee career effectively done?
I think so. And I think that's a blessing, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, I agree.
I think here's why I think it's a blessing. You slot Judge in at DH as soon as he comes back. You slot Judge in at DH.
Who plays right field?
You're going to have an outfield of George Lombard, Cody Bellinger.
Is it George Lombard, the shortstop?
Not Spencer Jones. I'm sorry, you're right. George Lombard is the shortstop.
I was going to say.
Yeah, no, he's not going to be playing right.
I don't want to move Lombard from there. I think he's got a chance. I think he's got a chance to be really good in the field and at the plate. Being a shortstop.
I think you're going to see a platoon of Bellinger, Jones, Grisham, Heliot Ramos.
Oh God! I hope Grisham picks it up.
Depending on the health, maybe Aaron
I really
Judge.
hope Grisham picks it up offensively. I'm praying for that.
I think that's what you're looking at for the outfield. I worry about their starting pitch. They lost Ryan Weathers, and that doesn't look good. Yesterday, he has a forearm. It looks like Ryan Weathers, and he's had injury history in the past. I think he's hit it. I think he's hit his wall. I think Weathers is going to be gone for the year. I think it's much ado about nothing with Fried. I think here's what I think about the Yankees. If they can hit just okay, they have a starting staff that nobody wants to go up against. With Fried, Cole, Schlittler, Rodon, I'll put that against anybody.
Can you put some of those guys like Will Warren or maybe even Rodon, into the bullpen to help the bullpen out a little bit?
I think somebody like Will Warren is going to go into the bullpen.
Yeah.
And all that, but we'll see. But if the Yankees can hit just a little bit, I think they're going to be a dangerous playoff team.
I mean, yeah, I'm looking at hitting. I'm also looking at defense. If the hitting gets better and the defense is there, yes, I know the pitching is really, really good. It's definitely World Series caliber and American League that's wide open, by the way. But the Yankees are making their move, and I'm starting to think that they might be able to pull a division rabbit out of their hat at this point because Tampa is struggling. And I think Tampa, for the most part, as good as they are, maybe playing over their heads for most of the year. So if the Yankees can somehow pass them, and we're not even in September yet, if they can somehow pass the Rays and get hot at the right time, which is possible, especially with Bellinger being back and Judge on the way, then could be the Yankees might be getting hot at the right time.
Tampa comes in for 4 games.
So we'll see.
In the last homestand of the year, the Yankees have 4 with Tampa and 3 with Baltimore.
So
Tampa comes in very late, So I think the Yankees have an easier
Is
schedule.
that four in Yankee Stadium with Tampa
Yes,
or in Tampa?
in the Bronx.
That's good. I don't like going down to Tampa. I don't like when they have to play in Tampa or Toronto.
Well,
And
that's the
speaking
term.
of Toronto, hopefully they beat Toronto today to beat them 2 out of 3. We've struggled massively with Toronto over the years. The Yankees need to win this game today to get 2 of 3 from their arch nemesis. It seems
Yep.
like
Yep.
they've got Boston under control. Boston will kind of come back down to earth, even though they'll probably be the third wild card in the American League, so they can hold the Boston at bay. But they need to beat Toronto today and at least split with Tampa, if not win 3 of the 4 games there.
Yep. I think if they get within a game of Tampa when Tampa comes in, I think we have a good shot.
I hope they
Any more?
pass them by then. I really do, which I think could happen.
It could because their schedule lightened. They have
Yeah.
Toronto, and then I forget who comes in after. Who's coming in after Toronto? Um, is it Boston?
I think so.
Boston comes in soon. I forget who comes in after. I'm drawing a blank. It might be Baltimore. I don't know.
Let's see
No, it
here.
can't be
So they
Baltimore.
have Toronto. They have
Oh,
Toronto
Houston.
today. They have the Astros coming in
Yep.
next. The
And then
Astros are leading the American League West right now, so that'll be a good series for the Yankees to see where they are right now. That's a pretty good
yep.
barometer series for the Yankees against the Astros, the Yankees have had fits against the Astros over the years, although they're playing better against them lately. Then the Red Sox come in for 3,
And
and
then
then
the
they
Yankees
get
go out west.
then they go to Anaheim to play the Angels, a
And
game that
then San Diego against the
I'll be at the
Padres.
game on September 1st. The Yankees should win 2 of 3 from the Angels, if not sweep that series, because the Angels cannot close out games. So the Yankees, even though they struggle on the West Coast at times, should have a very easy time with the Angels. And then they go to San Diego to face the Padres
That'll be a good
after
series.
they leave Anaheim. So,
Yep, that'll be a good series.
yeah.
So,
All right. Mancrush and Knucklehead of the week.
man crush of the week is John Harbaugh. The physical brand of football that he has restored with the New York Football Giants. Are you noticing a theme with my man crush of the week? The man crush of this week and last week was John Harbaugh.
Well, it was Brian Daboll for the first couple of years, and now it's going to be John Harbaugh every week.
There's a very big difference.
Can we just put that down?
There's a very John
Giants
Harbaugh is
head
John Harbaugh.
coaches.
John Harbaugh is John Harbaugh. Brian Daboll in my first year doing that won Coach of the Year. Then he fell off a cliff. He's just not a very good. He's one of those guys who's not a good head coach. He's a good offensive coordinator. Depending on what he does in Tennessee this year. But this is John Harbaugh we're talking about, and the brand of football that they're playing, I'm very impressed. So John Harbaugh is my man crush of the week. My knucklehead of the week will go to Cleveland. Deshaun Watson, and all this, crying and stuff like that about getting booed at home. And stop it. Go out and play football.
It's embarrassing, yeah.
So,
but Cleveland's embarrassing.
Cleveland is Cleveland.
Well, funny you should mention Cleveland. My man crush of the week is the representation of James Harden, Mike Silverman, Troy Payne, and Brandon Greer of Equity Sports. Getting Harden a 3-year, $97 million extension from the Cavs, putting him as the 4th player in the history of the NBA, with LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and now James Harden, as guys that have amassed more than $500 million in salary as an NBA player, not including endorsements and things of that nature. James Harden has got really good representation when you consider that he disappears in the playoffs every single year.
And he will again this year.
Which matters for Harden to have that kind of money. He's got really good representation. So the representation of James Harden in Equity Sports is my man crush of the week. Got to give those guys credit.
Yep.
My knucklehead of the week, conversely, is Kobe Altman and Cleveland Cavaliers management for offering James Harden that kind of a contract. Don't they know by now who James Harden is? Yes, he's a great regular season player, but here's the thing about being a star. It should be the whole way through. Preseason, regular season, playoffs, it's all part of the journey. I hate all this breaking up of, it's the regular season and the postseason. No, it's the whole journey. Yep. You have to have the regular season to get in the playoffs. Then you have to do in the playoffs to get to the championship round. James Harden has only played in the championship round once, and that's when he was a 6th man with Kevin Durant the aforementioned Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City
Oklahoma
before he
City.
bolted
Yep.
for Houston.
Yep.
Think about that. So my knucklehead of the week, Kobe Altman and the Cleveland Cavaliers management, despite the fact they acquired Payton Watson, which I thought was a good pickup, you cancel that out by extending Harden with a contract like that. Final comments, you're up.
It's so great to have football back. We're in the home stretch of the preseason. This Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I think, are the final preseason games. I think there's one game tonight. But and then we have what, 2 weeks off? Not even. Um,
You've got the final preseason games coming up this week. We're in week 2 now of the preseason, so you've got the week 3 next week. Then you've got final roster cut down, and then we begin a week and a half after that. So yes, after week 3 of the preseason, we are a week and a
yeah.
half away
So
from week 1 of the NFL with Wednesday's game between the Rams and the Niners.
nothing else needs to be, and well, it begins before that game. That they're actually the second game. Patriots Seahawks open up on Wednesday night, and Rams Niners is Thursday. Um, so yeah, we're in the home stretch. Football is back, baby. Nothing else needs to be said.
Mm-hmm. Well, my final comments are about something I'm absolutely sick and tired of. Every single day I turn on sports talk radio, there is talk about who the Cleveland Browns quarterback is going to be. And here's the question that I have about that. Who cares? Look, Deshaun Watson, his problems with masseuses aside, is not the
Yep.
guy he was in Houston and probably never will be again. Someone has to make a mistake like the Cleveland Browns did for other teams to learn from it. Never, ever, ever offer a contract like that to a guy with that kind of a jacket coming in. All right, just
Yep.
don't do it. Now we know. We learn from experience as humans. That's fine. But Deshaun Watson is a name only. He is not a viable quarterback in the NFL anymore. And the only reason why Shedeur Sanders gets talked about is because he's related to possibly the most flamboyant player that has ever played in the National Football League, Mr. Primetime Deion Sanders, who was an awesome player, but very flamboyant. And Shedeur Sanders, who's funny every time he talks, makes a joke, got a sense of humor, which is good. But how serious is he as a football player? I don't
Yep.
care. There's 31 other fan bases like, oh God, who's the Cleveland Browns quarterback is going to be? Can we get over talking about the Cleveland Browns and who their quarterback is going to be? It doesn't matter. Do you know when you have a bad team, when that team gets talked about more in the offseason than the actual season when games are being played? All right. Who's going to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns? It doesn't freaking matter. Here's the question that I have. Who's going to be the next quarterback of the Cleveland Browns? Because I'll bet you that Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders are not going to be those guys. It's who they're going to draft after this year. In Tom Monken's first year, he's got to be thinking at this point, what did I do to deserve this?
Yep.
Can we mellow out on who the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation would be? Because it doesn't matter as much as who their next quarterback is going to be. And with that, the living room is closed and we head out to the day. For Jack Angelo, I'm Steve Itzkowitz, a.k.a. Speakeasy Steve. This has been the Living Room Podcast, a Speakeasy Steve production. Check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/Steve Itzkowitz, ITZKOWITZ. Like and subscribe and pound the alert button to get all the videos as they are posted. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back next week to continue with more football talk as we continue to get ready for the 2026 National Football League season, which is enticingly closer. And we'll check it on the Major League Baseball pennant races as well. Can the Yankees get closer to the Rays or maybe pass them this week if they continue to win and Tampa Bay continues to stumble? A lot to follow, and the NBA is around the corner as well. So enjoy the week. Be safe out there, and let us remind you that every sporting event is time well spent. See ya!